look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Hey, we finally beat Medicare. Everybody can. What? We didn't want to beat Medicare, did we? I mean, I can't remember. Did we or did we not want to beat Medicare? And what was this? I mean. I don't know. That's almost as good as this one. I mean, wow. What was that thing that happened last night? And the Biden campaign going, did you get the number of that truck that just ran over our campaign? Oh, my goodness. What a show it was last night. We were last with you just as things were kicking off, and sat back there with all the folks out at the Hop Springs beer garden, beer park, and watched some of the debate. And I'm telling you, it was, you knew from the first moments that it was not going to be a good night for Joe Biden. You know, somebody, a great television person, a person who knows a lot more about television than I'll ever know, once told me that if you really wanted to study a talent, talking about hiring hiring TV people, said you should just play the video of the tape that they provide with the sound turned down and see whether or not you like that person without hearing what they're saying. And that's because, and this has been proven, that about 80% of communication is nonverbal. It's the expressions on your face. It's the way you gesticulate. It's the way that you deliver, and it's all nonverbal. Only about 20% of communication is actually the words that you say. And so, if you were to watch that debate with the sound down last night, you immediately knew it was going to be a bad night for Joe Biden because I'm not sure he was all there. Well, I mean, I was sort of expecting a guy to be all jacked up and juiced up, and he'd come out there with all guns blazing like we saw at the State of the Union, and we didn't have that guy. He didn't show up. And there were a couple of moments that I know you've heard them, but they bear repeating again. Real moments where we began to wonder about our commander-in-chief. The one that I just played for you, of course, is the one that is just, what in the hell was he saying?
Making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare.
We finally beat Medicare. I mean, I'm clueless as to what that means. I don't even know what he was trying to say. And the one that, of course, where Trump, he sort of rolled his eyes and said, I don't know what that guy was talking about.
And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either.
No, nobody knows what he was saying. It was a horrible night. But, Biden afterwards, he went to a little after party where people were watching the debate. He showed up to sort of talk to the crowd. And all he could say was, a line you've heard 1,000 times before and describing Donald Trump.
These guys are nothing but lying, dog-faced pony soldiers.
All right. Whatever that means. And then he went to a Waffle House in Atlanta. No good happens in a Waffle House late at night in Atlanta, as far as I know. But he was asked by the traveling press corps that was there with him to witness him getting waffles that he thought he did okay.
I think we did well.
I think we did well. Well, he may be alone in that opinion because there's not anybody else who thought he did particularly well. Oh, I mean, sure, his spokesperson tried to put lipstick on the pig.
So, look, he got off to a rough start. You know, he said afterwards, I have a sore throat. You may have seen that he went to the Waffle House in Atlanta after the debate, got some food. You know, you're going to see him on the stump today. He's going to North Carolina. He's got a big rally there. He'll be in New York later today at the Stonewall event. You know, business as usual as far as he's concerned on the campaign. But again, when it comes down to perhaps the night could have gone a little bit better for Joe Biden, but when it comes to the issues that this campaign is about, the issues that matter to the American people, President Joe Biden is on their side. He's fighting for them. And that is what our campaign will continue to drive. I
mean, that is really putting lipstick on the pig, because it was an abysmal performance. It really was. Anderson Cooper takes on the vice president. And even the vice president said, well, yeah, it was a slow start.
What we saw tonight is the president making a very clear contrast with Donald Trump on all of the issues that matter to the American people. Yes, there was a slow start, but it was a strong finish. And what became very clear through the course of the night is that Joe Biden is fighting on behalf of the American people, on substance, on policy, on performance. Joe Biden is extraordinarily strong. And
I'm sorry, on substance and policy and performance tonight, I mean, the president's performance tonight clearly was disappointing for his supporters.
Yep, that was Anderson Cooper giving this vice president of these United States a little pushback on that. And then, you know, she went to the only talking point that Democrats have.
They saw they witnessed the fact that if Donald Trump were elected to be president of the United States this November, he will sign a national abortion ban. Take him at his word. He said he would when he was president before. He said if it came to his desk, he'd sign it. There's no reason to believe anything would change. A national abortion ban means that folks in New York, California, Maryland, all these other states that have protected the right of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do will be at risk. That's what you should take away from that discussion.
You know what? By the way, Trump has said he would not sign a national abortion ban, and that he's not contemplating one. He thinks that it is rightly decided by the Supreme Court that it go back to the states. The states is where the issue is now. By the way, abortion is not outlawed in the United States. It's outlawed in some of the states, but not all of them, because it's a state-by-state issue, which I think is the perfect answer to that, by the way. Okay, so there you have, you know, what he said, including, you know, the squeaks and grunts.
Look,
I mean, I again, what is that? What is that little thing? I don't know what this little thing is. This is just odd. It just...
Sounds like my car when the belt's about to go bad. Go off.
It's something not right with that car. But let's see. What did the pundits have to say? Not much in the way of good news for Biden there. Gayle King at CBS.
Kept saying, you know, he had a cold, but this is the thing. When you have a cold, there's many things you can take for it. We didn't know he had a cold until he stood up. A cold doesn't force you to lose your train of thought. A cold doesn't force you to just throw things out randomly that to many people made no sense. And so how long do we continue to act like that we didn't see what we just saw last night? I thought for many people, the word I keep hearing, it was very painful to watch.
Painful to watch. Chuck Todd at NBC.
You know, one of the things was, would either candidate look like the caricature that the other campaign has been trying to paint of him? And at the end of the day, Joe Biden looks like the caricature that conservative media has been painting. And there were no clips tonight, right? This was, you saw it before your eyes. Look, I don't want to just tell you what I think here. I've been talking to a lot of leaders in the Democratic Party, electeds, coalition leaders. There's a full-on panic about this performance.
Yep, full-on panic. Van Jones, CNN.
I love Joe Biden. I work for Joe Biden. He didn't do well at all. He did not do well at all. But I just want to speak from my heart. I love that guy. That's a good man. He loves his country. He's doing the best that he can. But he had a test to meet tonight to restore confidence of the country and of the base, and he failed to do that. And I think there's a lot of people who are going to want to see him consider taking a different course now. We're still far from our convention. And there is time for this party to figure out a different way forward if he will allow us to do that. But that was not what we needed from Joe Biden, and it's personally painful for a lot of people. It's not just panic, it's pain of what we saw tonight.
It's pain. Again, you hear that term a lot. Democrats are in pain over what they witnessed. Former Obama speechwriter John Favreau did a podcast with some of his buddies and didn't have anything good to say. I've had to clean this up a little bit.
I think it was a disaster. I think it was like maybe the worst debate I've ever seen in my entire life. Joe Biden just in every single way failed at that debate. And I don't know what else to say there except that and then, I won't make any other predictions now, but it was a disaster.
A disaster. Painful disaster. Kristen Welken over at NBC. She had this to say.
There is widespread panic among Democrats. I got a number of text messages this evening, Democrats reaching out to say this is difficult to watch. Where does this go from here? One Democratic lawmaker, Tom, going so far as to say this race is effectively over.
All right. Effectively over. Willie Geist had this to say.
The bigger problem is that regular people who don't watch cable news every day, people who are not on Twitter, people who don't absorb politics the way we do, they watched last night and said, my God, I don't think he's up to this. They did tune in last night. Many of them Democrats hoping for the best.
Well, actually about 49 million people watched the debate last night. As debates go, there have been some bigger ones. I mean, the Trump-Hillary Clinton debate was around 80 million people, but that was closer to the election when people were hyper-focused. But 49 million, by the way, Fox did beat CNN with its own debate. CNN had 8.7 million viewers, and Fox had 8.8 million. So, I mean, Fox took the feed from CNN and beat them. That's interesting, isn't it? Campaign co-chair Mitch Landrieu, again, they came out and tried to put lipstick on the pig because there's not much you can do with such a miserable debate performance, but they're trying their best.
There's always a truth-telling session when these things happen. Joe Biden is not averse to hearing things that are bad. He has to make the decision about whether he's going to be a candidate or not. He has done that, and he's going to be the nominee. So, again, he started off slow last night. I thought he had some really good points during the debate.
Well, did he really? Because, I mean, the CNN fact checker found a lot of mistakes.
Some of them. He said he's the only president in a while who didn't have any troops dying anywhere in the world. Troops have, of course, died on his watch. He said he's put in a $15 per shot cap on insulin and Medicare. It's a $35 a month cap. He said it's a $200 cap on overall drug spending in Medicare. It's $2,000 a year. He said the border now has fewer crossings than when Trump was in office. That's generally not true. He said, or at least strongly suggested, unemployment was at 15% when he took office. It was actually 6.4. He said Trump wants to get rid of Social Security. Trump doesn't. He said billionaires pay 8.2% in taxes. It's much higher. He said Trump told Americans to inject bleach amid COVID. We know Trump made foolish comments about scientists studying disinfectant injection, but didn't frame it as advice to people. And Biden said the Border Patrol endorsed him. No, its union supported the border bill he supported, never endorsed him himself.
Well, beyond that, how did you like the debate? I mean, that many mistakes by Biden. I mean, it's like virtually everything that he said over the course of 90 minutes. So what's going to happen now? I mean, are they going to get shed of the guy? I want to just go through what I know. Obama. I always thought that if somebody was going to have to go and tell Joe it's over, it would have to be somebody of the stature of Barack Obama. Former President Barack Obama admitted that Joe Biden's debate performance Thursday night was bad, but still urged voters to back his former VP over Donald Trump. Bad debate nights happen. Trust me, I know. He wrote on X. He went on to say, but this election is still a choice between someone who fought for ordinary folks his entire life and someone who only cares about himself. Between someone who tells the truth, who knows right from wrong and will give it to the American people straight, and someone who lies through his teeth for his own benefit. So they're coming out swinging, but last night didn't change that, and that's why so much is at stake in November. Now, I would have thought that Obama would have held, if he was going to come and tell Joe Biden he had to step down, he would have just held his counsel. He wouldn't have said anything. He would have as they say in Washington, kept his powder dry. But he didn't. Very quickly, Biden was on the stump today, looked a little more vigorous, was on the teleprompter, and things seemed to go smoother for him when he was on the teleprompter.
I don't walk as easy as I used to. I don't speak as smoothly as I used to. I don't debate as well as I used to. But I know what I do know. I know how to tell the truth. I know right from wrong. And I know how to do this job. I know how to get things done. And I know, like millions of Americans know, when you get knocked down, you get back up.
And he was gesticulating with a closed fist. So I'm trying to make the best of a horrible, horrible situation, but there's no doubt at all that, I mean, a lot of people would like to see a change. And throughout the course of this program, we'll talk about that. I'll be taking your calls as well to see what you thought about it. But right now, 22 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock. Say, are your retirement assets structured to minimize taxes? May be hard to believe, but many hardworking Americans, just like you, could be overpaying on taxes in retirement. You may be taxed on your IRA, your 401k, any other tax-deferred retirement accounts. Beacon Capital Management is here to give you peace of mind, though. With the threat of massive tax increases just around the corner, your nest egg could be in trouble unless you take advantage of defensive tax-saving strategies now. Defend your hard-earned retirement savings by scheduling a free retirement tax reduction analysis today. No cost, no pressure, no obligation. If you've saved more than $250,000 for retirement, don't wait any longer. Schedule your free retirement tax reduction analysis from Beacon. Call this number, 615-488-9303, or visit askbeaconnow.com.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Matt Murphy for Members Nutrition. I want to tell you about the Members Nutrition difference, and I want to encourage you to go over to the Members Nutrition website. Number one, they believe at Members Nutrition that they can sell vitamins and supplements at a lower cost point, and they're doing it every single day at membersnutrition.com. Number two, they want to make these products right here in the United States of America, not from some overseas company, and they do that every single day. I encourage you to go to membersnutrition.com. You'll get 50% off your purchase price at checkout. You don't have to put in any codes. Just go to membersnutrition.com. Once again, membersnutrition.com.
In the wake of President Biden's performance in last night's debate, many high-level Democratic operatives remaining defiant that Joe Biden is still their candidate. A one-time Donald Trump confidant appears to be heading to prison, and a middle Tennessee man pleading guilty to setting fire at a grocery store a couple of years ago. We'll have those stories at 3:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
That's Jay Harper in the newsroom. They're in his little glass cubicle, and in the control room, pushing all the blinky buttons. It's your friend and buddy, Chris Webber. He's got it all under control, and we had a nice, smooth start to today's show. Thank you for that. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I mean that's always the goal, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. We had a great event last night out at Hop Springs in Murfreesboro. Their little beer market. What do they call it? A beer
garden?
Not garden.
No.
I forget.
I don't know.
No,
What
I
is it
forget.
called?
They have a name for it. Beer something, but it's about beer. What is it? Hop Springs Beer.
I think it's Beer Hall, isn't it?
No, it's not Beer Hall.
Yeah.
Park.
There you go.
Beer Park.
Beer
Beer
Park.
Park. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that sounds better.
Yeah, and so we had a great time at the beer park, and those people were really nice, and it's a great facility out there. People were and we had a tremendous turnout. Jay, you showed up there for a while toward the end, and
Yeah, I was there a couple hours.
How late did you stay?
I stayed till little after 9 o'clock. I got there at like 7.
Yeah.
And great crowd. Boy, they were into it.
Yeah, they were having a great time.
Yeah.
And then you know it's sort of fun to be with a bunch of people who it's sort of like a sporting event. It's sort of like watching, everybody's like a fan of a certain football team, and they're all there gathered, and they're drinking, and they're watching on the big screen TV, and everybody's hooting and hollering, having a good time, except it has to do with politics. Those folks were having a great time last night. Can't tell you. I mean, I didn't get to visit with as many people. Oh, somebody has to wear the daddy pants and run the show, and
It's
stay
funny how
there.
that always ends up being you.
I don't know why. Why is it always me? I'm the one who has to wear the daddy pants. I'm always the one going, talent back to stage, because those guys, especially, I'm just going to say it, Matt Murphy is a social butterfly.
Oh, he wouldn't disagree with that.
And he was flitting all over the place.
Yep.
And Dan Mandis was going around strutting with his new cowboy hat.
That's quite a look.
Well, actually, I thought he looked pretty good in the hat. Apparently, it was a gift of someone who came down to the show, and they wanted him to have a cowboy hat. And I thought he wore it well. I mean, he needs some better shoes because you don't wear lace-up dress shoes with a cowboy hat.
Well, I guess he wasn't prepared for it, right?
No, you got to wear a good case, a new good pair of Lucchese's or something like that. Some black lizards would have looked good with that.
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
you can handle that for him, maybe.
Yeah, no, that's too expensive. He's I'm not going to. But he needs to. Dan Mandis probably got half every dollar he ever spent. He's cheap. He's tight.
He is.
I mean, let's be honest. He's tight with the almighty dollar, and he can afford to buy himself a good pair of cowboy boots.
He'll probably try to sell the cowboy hat instead.
No, I think he really. I was listening this morning. He was still talking about the cowboy hat,
He did. It did fit him. I will say
he looked better on Dan Mandis than I would have ever imagined a cowboy hat looked. I mean, it looked pretty good.
It's not like he had anything else going on up there.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, as I have been dealing with the dermy doc, I've just come to the thing. You got to wear a hat all the time, especially if you got no hair. If you got no hair, put on a hat.
Yeah.
I mean, don't be like me and have a misspent youth where we didn't know anything about sunblock, because you'll pay for it as you get a little older, and that's what I've been paying. That's what I've been doing the last week or so, is paying for that. But again, a wonderful time. We're going to be talking a lot about the debate. When we come back after the news, the phone lines will be open, 615-737-9986. Want to get your take on it right now? It's time for the news with Jay Harper.
3:31. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We've got a mix of clouds and sun, 93 degrees on Music Row. We'll get you a toasty forecast and a traffic report here in just a few minutes. President Biden spoke softly and stumbled a bit on his words during Thursday's debate against former President Trump. But today, President Biden had more energy in delivering a campaign speech in Raleigh, North Carolina, where he admitted he's not a young man and doesn't debate like he used to. On the way from North Carolina to New York aboard Air Force One, Biden-Harris campaign communications director Michael Tyler said it may have been a rough night for the president, but that's better than a bad candidate with a bad vision for the country. Tyler says there are no plans for President Biden to step aside.
No conversations about that whatsoever. The Democratic voters nominated Joe Biden. Joe Biden's the nominee.
Former Donald Trump advisor Steve Bannon. Well, he's run out of appeals, and he's due to report to prison next week. Here's Andy Field with ABC News.
The Supreme Court issuing a one-sentence order denying Steve Bannon's request to stay out of jail while he appeals his contempt of Congress conviction. 3 weeks ago, Bannon declared that if he lost,
there's not a prison built or a jail built that will ever shut me up. All victory to MAGA. We're going to win this. We're going to win at the Supreme Court.
But Mr. Bannon lost there and now must report to jail on July 1st.
Back here in Middle Tennessee, a man has pleaded guilty to setting fire to a Kroger store a couple of years ago. Columbia Fire and Rescue says 55-year-old Jeffrey Mealer of Franklin accepted a plea deal in Murray County Court for the June 2022 incident. Authorities said he intentionally set fire to the Kroger on Nashville Highway while the night crew was there working inside the store. He was charged with aggravated arson, 6 counts of reckless endangerment, and also possession of methamphetamine with intent to sell. He's been sentenced to 15 years in prison. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather are next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Matt Murphy for Members Nutrition. I want to tell you about the Members Nutrition difference, and I want to encourage you to go over to the Members Nutrition website. Number one, they believe at Members Nutrition that they can sell vitamins and supplements at a lower cost point, and they're doing it every single day at membersnutrition.com. Number two, they want to make these products right here in the United States of America, not from some overseas company, and they do that every single day. I encourage you to go to membersnutrition.com. You'll get 50% off your purchase price at checkout. You don't have to put in any codes. Just go to membersnutrition.com. Once again, membersnutrition.com.
How you doing out there? 38 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock. You're listening to The Drive. I'm Brian Wilson on this Friday. A reminder that at 4:35 and 5:35, we'll have not one, but 2 rounds of Phone Your Farb Friday. A lot of stuff to talk about here today, but I also want to give you a chance this hour to sort of weigh in on what you thought about the debate. So the phone lines are open at 615-737-9986. That's 737-WWTN. I want to know what you thought. Obviously, that, you felt like Trump did well. I mean, overall, if you want to know the numbers while you're calling in, I'm going to give you some numbers here. CNN did a before and after take on a little with some people who are registered voters. They have a list of them, and they called them up before the debate last night and said, how do you think it's going to go? 45% of those that they contacted said they thought that Biden would do well, and 55% said they thought that Trump would win. After the debate, it shifted a great deal toward Trump. After the debate, the same people said that they thought 67% of them thought that Trump won, and 33% felt that Biden won. So a big shift toward Trump, about 2-1. People thought that Trump had a good night. As I said, about 49 million people had you got to understand with a debate like this, what people walk away with is not necessarily having watched the debate. A lot of people will look at the sound bites and the clips that they see on the news, and they'll draw their conclusion. And most of those clips have been about the stumbles of Biden. And so now we head into, the campaign in earnest between now and the conventions. I don't know what's going to happen. I really don't know. I can answer if you have any questions about that. I've been doing a lot of research. Maybe I can answer that. Phone lines, here we go. Scott in Murfreesboro. Scott, good afternoon. You're on with Brian on the Drive. Scott, what did you think? What was your take? And how do you think it all ended up? What will be the end result of all this?
Well, I think that, as you said, Trump did a pretty good job. Biden did a pretty bad job. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on the timing of this. I think if this debate had been done after the Democratic convention had secured the nomination for Biden, it'd be a slam dunk. It's like checkers and chess. I think that by debating early and being such an overwhelming winner in this debate, I think that we might have opened up a door for the Democratic Party to nominate somebody else, and then we have a brand new fight on our hands. What are your thoughts?
Well, if you had asked me last night what's going to happen, I'd say, well, they're going to get rid of him. They're going to get shed of him. It certainly felt that way last night. Today, the one person who I think could go to Biden and say, I'm sorry, Joe, it's just not working out. We need to do something different, would have been Barack Obama. And he made noises today as if he was staying behind Joe Biden. Not going to suggest he didn't keep his powder dry. He didn't hold his counsel. He came out and said that, I continue to support him and you should too. I thought that was interesting. So, I mean, I don't know who could talk him out of it. Biden is, I think he lives in a glass bubble. And I think he thought, I guess they feed him a lot of lollipops, rainbows, and sunshine, there in the Oval Office, because I think he thought he was doing just fine. They would cherry pick a poll here and a poll there and take it into him. And he thought, when you would ask about it, he'd say, check the polls, Jack. You don't look at the right polls. Well, I'm looking at all the polls, and they didn't look very good for him. But I think he's convinced that he's doing okay. And I think he felt last night that he had a pretty good performance. And I think he was disabused of that notion today. And I think it hacked him off. The one thing that it may do is it may energize him, because today he sounded a lot sharper than he did last night. But again, he's on teleprompter. It's different when you're on teleprompter than when you're out there trying to actually wing it. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I really don't know. I did read an interesting story. Let me just add this before I move on to other calls. That apparently they've got $145 million that they've collected for the campaign. And apparently they can't transfer that money to another candidate. The only person it could be transferred to would be Kamala. And I don't think they want Kamala as the candidate. So I don't know. I think maybe at this point what happens, and this is just my theory, I don't have any. I think they're going to try to find a way to get Kamala to go over and be a Supreme Court justice. I do. It's pretty clear to me that one of the justices will resign when the term is over, and that's going to be sometime next week. Then he could pick another vice president, and that sort of solves the problem, doesn't it? If you get somebody, besides Kamala in there, and people who if they have concerns about Biden, then they could say, okay, well, I got concerns about Biden, but I'm okay if there's somebody there who could step in that's not Kamala. And so, I think that might be the play that's going. They'll keep him as the nominee, but they'll try to replace Kamala and put her on the Supreme Court. That's my guess. If I had to guess today, that's what I think. Okay, thanks for all that. I went a little longer than I anticipated. Rick in Nashville. Rick, you're on with Brian on the Drive. What do you say, Rick?
Yeah, Brian, I have a comment that I think many people probably may be thinking, but they haven't really, they haven't really spoke it out. But I think when I saw Biden today, after the debate, now Trump definitely won the debate. Biden fumbled. We all know that. But Biden had a lot of things that he probably was going to say during that debate that he never got around to saying. So when he came out, and I saw this on the news on all these stations today, MSNBC, CNN, all of them had him at that rally, so enthusiastic with the North Carolina crowd. He was not rebuffed at all with any of the stuff. He just came out, and he had a lot of stories from, I think, the debate that he didn't get around to spouting out against Trump, where Trump couldn't say anything against him. And they're always talking about Biden's or Trump's lies afterwards. That's the worst thing in the world they want to say about Trump. He wins the debate, and then the only thing they can do is say he lied. He lies. And Biden, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, he lies. I don't really see Trump lying. I see him pointing things out in very clear messages to the American people, and the American people know it. That's what I see. But I think this was a missed opportunity for Biden to do well in the debate. So he came out desperately.
Well, it's easier to go out there and be coherent when you're reading it off a teleprompter. So, his speech writers put in all the lines that he apparently forgot. You may be right. Things that he never got around to in the debate, or he forgot about them. They put it into a speech and stick it in the teleprompter, and, he looks pretty good. But the teleprompter is not real, though. I mean, anybody can read a teleprompter, and especially, I think if somebody got a hold of him and he saw some of the reviews and he saw what was being said, it probably juiced him up a little bit. I'll show them. He's a very proud man. He really is a very proud and vain man, I think, as well. Rick, thank you so much for the analysis. Good stuff there. Leo in Nashville. Hello, Leo. You're on with Brian on the Drive. What do you say?
Hey, Brian. I just, after watching the debate, and obviously I think we all agree that the Democrats will do anything to stay in power. I cannot believe that they did not, after spending all week, 7 days coaching Biden, that they didn't see this coming. I think they know exactly what they're doing. And my thought is, I think they're going to try to play a sympathy card, because I'm hearing Republicans feeling sympathy for him as a aged old man at this point. What would stop? We've heard people talk about trying to get Michelle Obama to come on, but everybody says she doesn't want to do that. Well, what if, because of sympathy, because they're so close to the Bidens, she decides she's going to step in to continue to take the ticket? But then what's to stop her from basically resigning 2 or 3 months into the term? And then that gives the Democrats an opportunity to stack the deck. And that's all I'll say about that. I just want to hear what you guys say.
Well, I think Michelle Obama, I read a story the other day that I thought was very interesting, that she doesn't really care for the Bidens all that much. Axios had a pretty interesting story about how she really dislikes the Bidens. She's not at all as close as Barack is. I mean, Barack had a weekly appointment when he was president that was never violated unless he was out of the country, and that was he had lunch once a week with Joe Biden, and it was a long, lingering lunch, and they talked about policy, and one hears that that he liked each other. Now, I think Biden is looking a little askance at Obama now, not really happy that Obama keeps calling up the campaign and saying, well, you need to do this and you need to do that. I don't think he's happy about that. But, again, today, the one person who could go and convince Joe Biden that maybe it wasn't going to work out didn't do that today. So I don't know. Everybody has got this thing about Michelle, and I don't buy it. All I heard during the time that she was in the Oval Office as First Lady was that she hated her existence in Washington. She swore that she would never go back to the White House. She felt like it was being in a prison. She didn't like politics. And Michelle Obama is somebody, if you've ever been around her, she's got the most transparent face of anybody I've ever seen. If she thinks you're an idiot, it shows on her face. She doesn't suffer fools well at all. And I don't think she really has all that much fire in her belly for politics. I think that's her husband. I think she supported him. But I think the deal that they cut was after it's over, it's over. So I don't think she's going back, and I wouldn't count her in any of the plans. Jeff in Tracy City. Hello, Jeff. You're on with Brian. What do you think, Jeff?
Hey, Brian. Thanks for taking my call again. I called yesterday, and I was the first-time caller yesterday, actually.
So now you're a second-time caller.
Yeah. I had a pretty pessimistic view of how I thought the debate was going to be moderated, to be honest. By no stretch of the imagination to say that Jake Tapper and Dana Bash do not love Trump. And so I kind of thought that they would cut him off short, maybe cover for Biden and everything. But I'll just be honest with you. I come on your show just to kind of eat crow. I felt like it was very professionally moderated.
I do too.
I'll admit I was wrong. I think that they handled it very well.
I think, as I mentioned, CNN had a lot to prove here. They're trying to make the case that they are up the middle. Now, I mean, you can try to make that case, but I mean, they knew there'd be a lot of eyeballs on screens, and they knew, and they just had kept their head down and kept the train running. I thought they did a pretty good job, and I thought the questions were, for the most part, pretty fair. So I think most people looked at them and said, yeah, they played it up the middle. But I think that that's part of what CNN's trying to do. Remember, this was a big night for the two candidates. It was also a big night for CNN. And I remember, when I was at Fox, we'd be doing a debate. We were always cognizant of the fact that, a lot of people are going to be watching and forming their opinions about what Fox was based on that one performance. They might never watch again, but they would form an opinion. And I think that people at CNN are smart enough to have known that. And I think they decided they're going to play it right up the middle, and I think they did pretty much. We have gone way over. I got to get out. It's 52 minutes past the hour. If you didn't get in, we'll do it again during a Phone Your Farb Friday. You can still get another chance to weigh in and say your piece. Time for a commercial break. King & Associates Insurance in Brentwood has been an independent agency there for 25 years, over 25 years, really, and that's what you want. You want yourself an independent insurance agency. If you've ever done business with the big internet insurance companies, you know that they're just going to give you whatever they got, whatever policy they offer. They'll just take it and they'll plug it in like a square peg in a round hole. But at King & Insurance and Associates, they will actually go out and shop around a lot of different companies to find that policy that really meets your specific needs. You know what that means? You're getting more insurance for the dollar, more bang for the buck, and that's what you want, right? I mean, you got to have insurance. You want to make sure that you get the best for the least amount of money. You call this number, 615-329-8121. You will not get a call center. You will not get a recording. You'll get an actual person who will take care of your problems or find somebody who can. Multi-policy discounts, they're big on that. 20, 25, 30, 35%. Huge savings are possible with bundling, so look at that possibility. Listen, get your royal review with King & Associates Insurance. Just log into tkinginsurance.com. King Insurance & Associates, you'll get royal treatment and great rates.
Hey, it's Dan Mandis, and I am so glad that California Closets has fixed my closet catastrophe. After exact measuring and planning, they came over and got to work. Yeah, once it was all plotted out on their 3D CAD system, the pieces are measured, cut, and precisely installed into my space. It was clean, fast, and professional, and above all, my new closets look and function great. Now, this was my dormer, and now this is my new dormer thanks to California Closets. Look at all of this added space for shirts and shoes, you name it, and it is cut so precisely, simply amazing. And my old closet that has now been reborn as the ultimate in style and functionability, making the best use of the space that I had. They can work on just about anything: bedrooms, garages, home offices, closets, pantries, and so much more. Find them online, CaliforniaClosets.com, and see what they can do for you. You can schedule a free design consultation. Mention my name, CaliforniaClosets.com.
Several Supreme Court rulings today, at least one of which deemed to be a landmark decision. And President Biden and former President Trump wasting no time in getting back on the campaign circuit after last night's presidential debate. We'll have some of their comments from those campaign stops when we come up at 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right, let's take a look at the markets real quick. Dow Jones Industrials down 45, the S&P down 22, NASDAQ down 126. All screens are red today. What's driving the market? Well, let's check in with John Maxon over at Beacon Capital Management to find out more. Good afternoon, John.
Hey, good afternoon. The market was a little bit surprised that it was down today because we got a good PCE report, but we just finished the second quarter of the year, so we're halfway through, if you can believe that, and the market's overcome fears of recession and a lot of disappointment about not having rate cuts to this point. S&P's up still almost 15%, NASDAQ almost 19%, but that's been really driven by a lot of AI stocks. But today, the PCE index, which is the Fed's favorite inflation index, came in at 0.1. That's much lower than April, which is at 0.3, which increases the hopes of a potential rate cut in July or September. And then core PCE was 2.6 year over year. Next week, we're going to get unemployment and employment numbers, so the Fed's going to be watching that really closely, and we'll see how the second half of the year kicks off.
All right. Thank you very much, John. Find out about all the things that John Maxon and all the good people at Beacon Capital Management can do for you to get ready for your retirement. Just go to their website, askbeaconnow.com. 59, almost 59 past the hour now.
Good afternoon. It's 2 minutes past 4 p.m. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We've got a mix of clouds and sun, 92 degrees on Music Row, a complete forecast for the weekend, and the latest traffic report are on the way. A Supreme Court decision today could make it harder to charge and convict January 6th rioters with obstruction. In a 6-3 ruling, the court limited how a law that had been cited by prosecutors could be used. ABC's Pierre Thomas says the Department of Justice has been taking a look at how many cases might be affected and says almost all January 6th defendants were charged with other crimes beyond this statute, and only a few were convicted only of violating this specific law.
They conclude there are only about 27 people that had only this case as the primary charge against them, meaning about 27 people would actually see some likelihood of their sentence being significantly reduced.
Another ruling by the High Court is viewed as a major win for the conservative legal movement at the Supreme Court. In a 6-3 ruling, the justices have reversed a decades-old rule affecting how courts should handle federal agency regulations. ABC's correspondent Stephen Portnoy, he has more on the issue from Washington.
This is a landmark decision upending 4 decades of jurisprudence, a doctrine known as Chevron deference. It was named after the oil and gas company that had a key environmental case before the court 40 years ago. In overturning Chevron, Chief Justice John Roberts says courts should no longer defer to a federal agency's reading of an ambiguous statute. Conservatives have sought this outcome for years, and liberals now worry the ruling could affect thousands of cases in which federal regulators prevailed.
Getting back to the 2024 presidential election, both Donald Trump and Joe Biden back on the campaign trail today after last night's debate in Atlanta. Former President Trump at a rally in Chesapeake, Virginia this afternoon, commenting on President Joe Biden's performance at Thursday night's debate.
The question every voter should be asking themselves today is not whether Joe Biden can survive a 90-minute debate performance, but whether America can survive 4 more years of crooked Joe Biden in the White House.
And President Biden today, he's out on the trail as well, kicking off a post-debate trip to multiple locations. First up today, Raleigh, North Carolina. Here's the president at that event, referring to last night's debate.
I'm here in North Carolina for one reason, because I intend to win this state in November. Are you going to see that? I think we are. And Roy's right. We win here, we win the election.
That is the latest news. Traffic and weather are next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
It is 9 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Hey, hour number 2 of the drive now kicking off. So glad that you're with us. We're glad to have you on this Friday. It is 93 degrees. Still hot out there. Yesterday was sort of, we got a little break. It was upper 80s, I think, yesterday.
Yep. Well, it's cranking up just in time for the weekend.
That's right. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. We're glad that you're with us for the drive. What a night that was last night out at Hop Springs Beer Park. Let's get that right. Beer Park. And it was a good event, and a lot of people came out, and we're glad to see you. We're going to have to get some other news in because, quite frankly, we've been so focused on the debate. And I promise you that during Phone Your Farb Friday, if you want to talk about the debate, ask questions, whatever, we'll do that coming up at the bottom of this hour. But there is other news that I think is really important that I want to squeeze in here. Then we'll get back to more debate stuff, I promise. And it has to do with what the Supreme Court did today. Really, one of these rulings is, it's pretty big as things go. Now, we did not get the immunity, the presidential immunity decision that everybody's been waiting on. It looks like that's going to come next week. Let me read you what I know about that. Supreme Court expects to miss its normal deadline of handing down its final opinions by the end of June. Traditionally, they end it by the end of June. And then they go on vacation. And everybody looks forward to getting out of there at the end of June and having the 4th of July, and then they take several months off and come back. But apparently when they do that, when it getting to the last day, the day before the last day, the Chief Justice will send out a notice saying that, well, tomorrow will be the last day. And he hasn't done that yet. And we do know that opinions are going to be handed down Monday, July 1st. And then by then we don't really know if there's going to be additional days or not scheduled beyond that. They actually really have a whole little ceremony that they do at the high court. All the clerks who have clerked get involved in it like a trivia contest, and they have a little gathering, with all the law clerks and all of the justices. They very much like it. I know about this because I don't like to talk about this, but at one point I dated Janice Rehnquist, who was the Chief Justice's daughter back in the day. And I happened to be called over one day and said, today was the last day of the high court, and Dad's coming over for fish, and you're grilling fish. So I grilled fish for Justice Rehnquist. By the way, I called him Justice Rehnquist through the entire dinner. You
never said...
You would have thought if somebody said, "Hey, call me Bill." No, no,
never.
Never said it. So I'm from the South. Until somebody tells you, you use their title. It's either Mr. or Mrs. or if they're like a judge, justice in this case. So anyway, and he brought his little trivia game that they had done earlier today with all the clerks, and between the two of us, we got all of them.
Clean sweep, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
I felt pretty good about that. Anyway, long story short, they have this whole big ceremony, and they have a way, and they like to be done by June. So to go into July, honestly, is a bit of an unusual situation. But here's the big decision that came down today, and we're going to get some came down yesterday. We just didn't have time to talk about it. There's too much else going on. Supreme Court today curtailed the executive branch's ability to interpret laws it's charged with implementing, giving the judiciary more say in what federal agencies can do. In a landmark 6-3 ruling that fell along ideological lines, it overturns the court's 40-year-old Chevron deference doctrine, the Chevron doctrine. It could make it harder for executive agencies to tackle a wide array of policy areas, including environmental and health regulations and labor and employment law. Writing for the court, Chief Justice John Roberts argued that Chevron defies the command of the Administrative Procedures Act, which governs federal administrative agencies. He says it requires a court to ignore, not follow, the reading the court would have reached had it exercised an independent judgment as required by the Administrative Procedures Act. Basically, what happens with the Chevron deference, the Chevron doctrine, If somebody wants to challenge something that comes down from an agency, some ruling, some regulation, they would basically take it to court, and the judges would look at it and say, well, we have this thing called the Chevron doctrine. It's been the law of the land for some 40 years. And what we're supposed to do is we're supposed to get great deference to the agencies who hand down the regulations, because the Chevron deference says if what Congress sends to the agencies is ambiguous or unclear, then great deference should be given to the agency's interpretation of the law. And that's been the way it is. And the problem is that, you know, a Democrat administration will come in and they will interpret the law one way. And then the Republican administration comes in and they interpret the law another way. And it's a constantly shifting terrain, quite frankly. And the judges have largely been said, well, our hands are tied because, you know, the Supreme Court said we're supposed to give great deference to the agencies. Well, that's all gone now. The court's decision did not call into question prior cases that relied on Chevron, including holdings pertaining to the Clean Air Act, because they are still subject to statutory stare decisis despite our change in interpretive methodology. Justice Elena Kagan, in a dissenting opinion, wrote that the ruling Friday was yet another example of the court's resolve to roll back agency authority despite congressional direction to the contrary. Congress knows that it does not, in fact, cannot write perfectly complete regulatory statutes, she wrote. It knows that those statutes will inevitably contain ambiguities that some other actor will have to resolve and gaps that some other actor will have to fill, and it would usually prefer that actor to be the responsible agency, not a court. She said this decision is likely to produce large-scale disruption. I'm all for that. I'm for judges making the call and not having the agencies basically act as legislators. Well, we think this is what Congress meant. Well, you know what? Maybe if you don't know what Congress meant, you go back and ask them. I don't know, but I've always felt that when Congress acts, there should not be a lot of gray area here for the agencies to step in and reinterpret the law. And a lot of times, I'll tell you, I think they interpret it wrongly. So there is that one. That was a pretty big one, and I'm seriously, that changes a lot of things and makes regulatory agencies less powerful. And I am all in favor of that. Then there was a decision. Let's see, I got to find it here. I got so many decisions here. Chevron. Oh, yes. This came down yesterday. The Supreme Court on Thursday officially affirmed a lower court injunction that allows abortions in medical emergencies to continue in Idaho 1 day after inadvertently posting the opinion briefly before scrubbing it. This is the one that got leaked, and then they said, no, we didn't mean to release that. Pay no attention to what you saw online. The case will now go back to lower court for further evaluation, but the decision by the high court ensures that Idaho doctors can continue to perform emergency abortions for the time being. The move drew criticism from both ends of the ideological spectrum of the Supreme Court, with Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson and Samuel Alito wanting the high court to make a decision based on the merits of the case, albeit with those two justices reaching different conclusions. That's pretty good. Now, here's another one that came down today. The Supreme Court rules that prosecutors overreached in January 6th cases. The court said that a Pennsylvania man who had entered the Capitol building during the riot may have been improperly charged under an Enron-era obstruction of justice statute enacted in 2002 that makes it a crime to impede certain government proceedings. The Supreme Court separately is expected to issue a blockbuster ruling on Monday involving Trump's claim of immunity from prosecution. Congress enacted the 2002 law in response to the Enron accounting scandal and allegations that the energy company's outside auditor, Arthur Anderson, had systematically destroyed incriminating documents. In the years after the statute's enactment, prosecutors mostly used it against people they thought were tampering with evidence in criminal investigations. Writing for the court in a 6-3 opinion, once again, it was right along ideological lines, Chief Justice Roberts said that Congress likely didn't intend for the obstruction provision to serve as a catch-all to address conduct beyond the type of wrongdoing that prompted the legislation. Justice Department has charged more than 1,400 people for participating in the January 6th. About 350 of them were charged with violating the obstruction law. The vast majority of the more than 1,400 defendants charged for their illegal actions will not be affected by the decision, said Attorney General Merrick Garland in a statement. For the cases affected by today's decision, the department will take appropriate steps to comply with the high court's ruling. So there you go. 2 of the 4 charges Trump faces rely on portions of the same obstruction statute. Among the allegations, the former president is accused of trying to fraudulently alter the Electoral College certificates that Congress was tasked with certifying during the joint session held on January 6, 2021. So that'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. But it's probably a good ruling for Trump. Certainly a good ruling for about 450 of the some 1,400 people who've been charged with January 6 cases. And then, I love this one. This actually has an impact locally. Supreme Court ruled on Friday that cities can penalize the homeless for sleeping outdoors by upholding a law banning homeless encampments. Again, 6-3 stemmed from a case from Oregon where they were fining people nearly $300 for sleeping outside. If not paid, the fine would increase to $537.60. Make sure you get the 60 cents. And multiple citations could expose the individual to criminal trespass charges and could lead to a heftier fine and jail time. And the city had previously argued it relied on camping laws, which bar the use of blankets, pillows, cardboard boxes for protection to protect the community. But the high court said that the cities can do that. Nashville, please take note. You can do something about it. 21 past the hour now, 4 o'clock. You know, there are a lot of diagnoses out there and a pill for just about everything, but not all diagnoses are accurate. Not all pills are good for you. When you get a diagnosis for European auto repair, maybe you ought to get a second opinion before you make a major decision. Eurofix is the home for second opinions. Before you spend hundreds or even thousands of dollars on European vehicle repair from a diagnosis you get somewhere else, why don't you go to Eurofix? It might save your vehicle's life, could save you a lot of trouble and a lot of money. At Eurofix, you get a free 15-minute no-wrench inspection with an estimate at every visit. No high-pressure sales tactics. At Eurofix, you get a 3-year nationwide warranty and a free loaner car with every repair appointment. At Eurofix, you never pay dealer prices. There are locations in Franklin, 100 Oaks, Murfreesboro, Belmead, and their newest location in Mount Juliet, right on Mount Juliet Drive, across from the Dairy Queen. Call 844-EUROFIX or visit myEurofix.com and tell them your friend and radio buddy Brian Wilson sent you.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Matt Murphy for Members Nutrition. I want to tell you about the Members Nutrition difference, and I want to encourage you to go over to the Members Nutrition website. Number one, they believe at Members Nutrition that they can sell vitamins and supplements at a lower cost point, and they're doing it every single day at membersnutrition.com. Number two, they want to make these products right here in the United States of America, not from some overseas company, and they do that every single day. I encourage you to go to membersnutrition.com. You'll get 50% off your purchase price at checkout. You don't have to put in any codes. Just go to membersnutrition.com. Once again, membersnutrition.com.
The Friday morning quarterbacking continuing this afternoon on President Biden's debate performance. And we'll also have today's closing money news. That comes up at 4:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Jay Harper. 26 minutes past the hour now of 4 o'clock. We're in hour number 2 of the drive. A reminder, 4:35, another round, or our first round actually today, of Phone Your Farb Friday, where you get to sound off within boundaries because it is a family show. Wilson County School Board has mandated, I love this, parental notifications of gender identity changes. Some school districts will not tell the parents when the child at school says, I want to be called by a different name, or I want to be considered a different gender. The Wilson County School Board approves the wording of their gender identity policy that requires parents to know if a student changes their gender identity. The move is in the next step in implementing what is already state law. Wilson County Board affirmed what the state wanted. They unanimously voted to approve the gender identity policy in their 24-25 handbook. During the work session, one of the notable changes was the student name to a student accommodation request for a bigger umbrella. Okay. School board members mentioned that the language of the policy was taking the public chapter of the law itself, but even though the policy is already law, there's been mixed results from parents. This according to Fox 17. Although our kids are not in the school system, things that happen in school should always be shared with parents. I do believe that. I believe the parents have a right to know, and it shouldn't be kept from them. But I got to tell you, in a lot of places, not in Tennessee now, apparently, because the law has been passed, but in other places, they will keep this information from the parent. They're under strict orders to keep that information private, and you have to call the student by whatever gender pronoun they want to be used, and you have to use their preferred name, and the parents would know nothing about it. I think, parents, should be involved in things like that, just me. As long as we're talking about education, I want to get this in very quickly. Tennessee test scores reveal deep gaps in math and reading for 8th graders. We've talked about this before. This is from Fox 17. Tennessee state test scores painted a bleak picture, with 71% of 8th graders being not proficient in reading and 66% of 8th graders not being proficient in math. That is tragic. And Fox 17 went and talked to a guy named Alex Guppy, I assume a guy, who owns several mathnasiums around the country, including 5 here in the Nashville area. Mathnasium is a math tutoring business, and Guppy emphasizes the gap is widening significantly, which shows up in these recent TCAP results. Starting the 8th graders are now reading at a 29% proficiency rate. That is unacceptable. 29% of 8th graders reading on the 8th grade level. He says that he believes it was the pandemic was a big factor, because he explains in math, and this is true, in math, when children fall behind on the fundamental concepts, it's like building a brick wall. You got to get the foundation good and solid. Then you lay another layer of bricks, and once you have those bricks, then you can lay another layer of bricks. I mean, you're building a brick wall with math, and the idea is, if as long as you learn the thing before, the next thing should be easier to understand, and then the next thing build upon that and build upon that and build upon that. And somewhere along about 3rd grade, I got lost.
Missing a brick or two, huh?
I'm missing a lot of bricks. That's you know what it was? I mean, it's people of my age will know what I'm talking about. It was this thing they called new math.
Ooh.
New math. Oh, we're going to teach you how to do math, and we're not going to do it the old-fashioned way, where you carry a 1 and all that kind of stuff. No. They insisted that we do it this new way, and the teachers didn't understand it either. And so, I got way behind, and I never could figure it out. And I think I also just don't have a gift for math, but one way or the other. I could read like nobody's business. But I mean, these 8th graders, 34% proficient in math, 29% proficient in reading. That's a crisis. That's a real crisis. Time for the news at 31 past the hour.
Good afternoon. It's 4:31, and I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. A mix of clouds and sun. It's still a steamy 92 degrees on Music Row. A full forecast and a traffic report are coming up. Some Democrats still worried today after the debate between President Biden and former President Trump. The president's raspy voice throughout the debate, attributed by his campaign to a cold. At times, he appeared to stumble over sentences and lose his train of thought. ABC's Karen Travers has the latest.
The Biden campaign says it raised $14 million on debate day and into Friday morning, including what they say was their best single hour of fundraising so far this campaign, from 11 p.m. to midnight. That compares to the $10 million the campaign raised after the president's State of the Union address in March. A senior campaign official tells ABC the president is absolutely not considering dropping out of the race and is committed to the second debate. This despite a growing chorus of some pundits publicly and Democrats privately questioning whether the president should continue this race.
Now let's turn to today's closing money news with Chuck Sievertson.
From ABC News, Wall Street now. All three major indexes end the month having gained ground in June. For the day, the Dow lost 45 points, the S&P 500 down 22, and the Nasdaq index down 126. The technology-heavy Nasdaq had the biggest gains of the first half of this year because of the artificial intelligence craze. It added 18.5% in value. The broad S&P 500 added 14%. The Dow added just 3.6%. While the Dow had a pullback in the second quarter, the S&P and Nasdaq roared forward. A measure of prices that's closely tracked by the Federal Reserve suggests that inflation pressures in the U.S. economy are continuing to ease. Consumer prices were flat from April to May, the mildest such performance in more than 4 years. Measured from a year earlier, prices rose 2.6% last month, slightly less than in April. When you take out volatile food and energy costs, inflation barely registered any increase at all from April to May.
That is the latest news, traffic, and weather. They are next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
You know, the clock is ticking on Genesis Diamond's amazing finance offer. You can have until this Sunday. That's right, they're open to Sunday to take advantage of the hottest offer of the summer. 5 years, 0 interest financing. That's right. It's pretty simple. Get in now and splurge. Maybe treat yourself. Planning to propose? Get that stunning designer engagement ring starting as low as $67 a month. Or a 3-carat lab-grown center diamond? Just $99 a month. Pick any item. Divide the price by 60, and that is your payment. People have driven for hours to take advantage of this, so don't put it off. Don't wait another moment. Buy that pre-owned Rolex or that designer ring or just a simple diamond pendant. Get the incredible price Genesis is famous for, then spread your payments over 5 years. 0.0% interest. It's insane. It's the smartest, easiest, and best way to buy. Nothing down, no interest for 5 years, but hurry, this incredible offer ends Sunday afternoon and will not be extended. Only at Genesis Diamonds, 2 locations, Green Hills and Cool Springs, on approved credit. Get more details at genesisdiamonds.com.
Hey, it's Dan Mandis, and I am so glad that California Closets has fixed my closet catastrophe. After exact measuring and planning, they came over and got to work. Yeah, once it was all plotted out on their 3D CAD system, the pieces are measured, cut, and precisely installed into my space. It was clean, fast, and professional, and above all, my new closets look and function great. Now, this was my dormer, and now this is my new dormer thanks to California Closets. Look at all of this added space for shirts and shoes, you name it, and it is cut so precisely, simply amazing. And my old closet that has now been reborn as the ultimate in style and functionability, making the best use of the space that I had. They can work on just about anything: bedrooms, garages, home offices, closets, pantries, and so much more. Find them online, CaliforniaClosets.com, and see what they can do for you. You can schedule a free design consultation. Mention my name, CaliforniaClosets.com.
It is 39 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I am Brian Wilson. You're listening to The Drive, and we're so glad to have you with us on this Friday. And you know what we do on Fridays at this time? A little thing we like to call Phone Your Farb Friday. That's right. Give us a call at 615-737-9986. Love to have you join us here. Maybe you got a bee in your bonnet. Maybe you got a burr in your saddle. Maybe you've got a bug in a place where, quite frankly, I hope that you never, ever have a bug. Just give us a call, 615-737-9986, and share with us. A lot of people want to talk about, I think, the debate last night. We had a good round in the 3 o'clock hour. We can talk about that some more, or if you got something else that's on your mind, or you got a question, and you want to sort of get that straightened out. Then maybe I've got the answer. I've been digging in on some stuff, so maybe I do have the answer. 615-737-9986. Okay, we got some phone lines still open, but we'll start with Brian in Lawrenceburg. Hello, Brian. You're on with Brian on Super Talk 99.7. What do you think?
Wow, man, first caller. That's awesome. How you doing today, Brian?
I'm doing well. What do you think?
Well, talking about last night's debate, I tell you what, boy, the liberal media, CNN and MSNBC, man, they had massive egg on their face last night, and watching their guy struggle. I mean, do you think that now it's over with, that they're going to replace Joe at the convention?
Well, I last night, if you had asked me that question, I think I would have said yes, it's going to happen. Today, I've read a couple of things that sort of make me wonder about what their plan is. I mean, clearly they got a problem, and clearly, I think the polls, which have been looking good for Trump, are going to probably swing his direction because it was a seminal event and people were paying close attention, right? But then today I noticed one thing. The one person who would have to go to Joe Biden and say, hey, Joe, it's not working, would be Barack Obama. And today he put out a statement saying he supported and he wanted everybody else to support the candidacy of Joe Biden. So doesn't sound like that Obama's ready to go over there and have that hard conversation with him. And then there was one other thing that crossed my research today, and I went, wow, I did not know that. That apparently they have raised $145 million. And the only person who can legally have that money transferred to them, campaign funds that have been collected thus far, would be Kamala. Anybody else, you can't transfer it. There may be a way around it, but what I read today, it seemed pretty definitive that election law said if you raise it for one candidate, you can't just hand it over to another person. And so I don't know. It seems like to me that they may be stuck. And I think that the way they solve their biggest problem at this point is honestly this. I think that they've got a Kamala problem. Kamala is the vice president, and a lot of people look at her as, I don't trust her. If something happens to Joe, I don't want her to be the president. And that's what's got a lot of people concerned, is that they don't want to really vote for Joe, but they would feel comfortable if there was a better number two. So if they find something else for Kamala to do, then that would be sort of interesting. And so the only thing that I see on the horizon that sort of fits the bill of how do you solve your Kamala problem is if there's a resignation on the high court, which could come at the end of the term, which ends next week. So Sotomayor steps down. You know, it ain't nothing to be the Supreme Court justice for life. It doesn't really change the balance of the high court. It'll still be 6-3, but they could probably push through that nomination, and she becomes a Supreme Court justice. Then Biden chooses another strong number two, somebody stronger than Kamala, and then people can say, well, I mean, if the people were really worried about having to vote for Biden and Kamala, maybe they don't feel quite as bad as voting for Biden and somebody who is perceived as being stronger than Kamala. So I know it takes a long time to explain that. That's sort of my working theory for now. It's just a theory, but I mean, if you said last night, are they going to change? Yeah, I said they can, and they still can, but what are they going to do with that $145 million? That's going to be interesting to see what happens there. All right. Thank you for the call. Tim, on the road. What do you think, Tim? What's on your mind today?
If something happens and Biden does get replaced, what happens with Hunter at that point?
And he gets replaced? Well, the question is, would he still have, Secret Service protection? Is that what you're asking?
No, if he would be able to be pardoned or commuted, sentenced.
Well, Biden has said that he won't do that. And if he does it now, he will have gone back on his word. But I guess he could, since he's got nothing to lose at this point if he were to be replaced. But again, the question is, can they actually replace him? And who would force him to do that? He's got the delegates locked up. And so the question is, okay, well, he got the delegates locked up. Those delegates that are sort of sworn to him, how he has to basically say, I'm stepping down, and then can release those delegates to an open convention. And I don't get the impression from what he said today and what everybody else is saying and what Obama has said today that they're thinking that direction. I don't know, but that's where. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I wonder if he doesn't step down, if the reason he's not stepping down is because of Hunter, is what I'm saying.
Well, all I know is what he has said. He's been asked the question directly, would you pardon your son? And he said he wouldn't do it. But, I mean, who knows? He certainly can do it, but he has said that he would not. So there we go. That's best I can do for you on that one. John in Gallatin, hello, you're on with Brian on the drive. What do you say, John?
Hey, Brian. I just really want to make a comment, or like just give my opinion a little bit on the whole reading at a certain level thing. I grew up and I was always reading behind the, norm or what everybody said I was supposed to. And I got a lot of pressure put on me in middle and high school to improve those numbers. Never really could improve those, but I went on to get an engineer degree, and I do pretty well for myself. So it's like I get frustrated at hearing like kids aren't on a certain level when that level may not ever come to that kid and may need to be, guided in a different direction.
I think it's important to look at kids and understand that not all kids learn the same way. I mean, I think I was an ADD kid, honestly, and I have a sister who's in education. We've talked about this a great deal. And, I think ADD kids learn by doing better than trying to just, stay focused and memorize stuff and spit it back out at you. But I do say this, if you're in the third grade and you don't have a basic level of proficiency in reading, the rest of your educational experience is going to be difficult. Now, it seems like you had a gift for numbers, something that I didn't have. I had a gift for words. And I could write and I could read and comprehend, but I didn't have other skills. So you have to basically try to adapt to whatever skills the kid has. But but you got to look at the big picture here. If everybody, if only 39% of people in Tennessee are reading at the right level, that's really not acceptable. It means where something is failing. And that we owe it to the kids to figure out what that is. Now, some of that is, I think it has to do with the pandemic. We still owe it to those kids to try to figure it out, because I'm telling you, you get to 4th, 5th grade and you can't read, your educational experience is going to be much more difficult. Much more difficult. Appreciate the call, though. I love talking about that topic. Will in Lafayette, you're up next on the drive. What do you say, Will?
Well, I was just going to talk about the debate last night. I was sitting there watching it, and honestly, to me, it felt like I was watching an SNL skit.
Yeah. Yeah. In what way?
Well, you had Trump. He was just kind of grinning like the Cheshire Cat, and then you had Biden, who looked as lost as last year's Easter egg.
Yeah, he was lost. He definitely was lost. The look on his face, I think he would just look, and he had that blank stare, and his mouth was hanging open. Like, what's that all about? He really looked much older than his years. But yeah, I'm telling you, it was bizarre. And then you got a sense in the first few minutes that it was not going to be a good night for Joe Biden. And it wasn't interesting when they came out and said, well, he had a cold. You know what I say about that? I don't believe that at all. I think that was a cover story because they needed to explain why he was doing so badly. Thanks for the call, though. Clara, let's go to Clara in Murfreesboro. Same topic. She wants to talk about the debate. Clara, what do you think? What was your thought about it last night?
Well, before that, I'd like to say that a lot of people I'm hearing as the host saying that they think it would just be a swap out if Kamala Harris goes to the Supreme Court. That may be true, but I think they're looking for a better leaker than what they've got in there right now.
Well, you may be right about that.
So that might be their advantage there. Not that she'd be a different vote, but she'd be able to leak a little bit better.
Yeah.
The progressive liberal Democrats always have a plan, and they're in the midst of executing it right now. Joe Biden, maybe he won't pardon his son, but nobody asked would he pardon himself. So he may be trying to hang on just in case he gets charged with something, or Mayor Garland gets charged with something, he has to pardon him. And there's nothing honorable about Barack Obama, so I don't believe for a minute that he's standing behind Joe Biden. When the time's right, he'll strike, and I do believe that Michael Michelle will be the candidate of their choice. So
Okay, well, I'll bet you money on that one because I don't think so. But, you've heard me say that before. A lot of people do believe it. I do not. I do not believe Michelle is the choice. She doesn't want to do the job. She doesn't want it. And couldn't be more passionate about hating Washington. But that's I hear people say this all the time. I'm just telling you from some inside knowledge that I have of how she thinks. From people who know her, she's not at all interested. But we'll see. We'll see. You could be right. All right, we're all out of time. We'll do another round of this. By the way, we do compare the 4 and the 5 o'clock hours. It's not really, a competition, but we do notice. So I think that was a pretty good round. Strong round, Chris?
Yeah, not bad.
Yeah, pretty good round. All right, we'll do it again in an hour, 51 minutes past the hour.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Matt Murphy for Members Nutrition. I want to tell you about the Members Nutrition difference, and I want to encourage you to go over to the Members Nutrition website. Number one, they believe at Members Nutrition that they can sell vitamins and supplements at a lower cost point, and they're doing it every single day at membersnutrition.com. Number two, they want to make these products right here in the United States of America, not from some overseas company, and they do that every single day. I encourage you to go to membersnutrition.com. You'll get 50% off your purchase price at checkout. You don't have to put in any codes. Just go to membersnutrition.com. Once again, membersnutrition.com.
Good afternoon. It is 1 minute past 5 p.m. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We've got a mix of clouds and sun on Music Row, 92 degrees, a steamy weekend forecast, and the latest traffic report are just minutes away. Reactions remain mixed to Thursday night's presidential debate between former President Trump and President Biden. Some voters say they felt bad for President Biden's poor performance. Others say the debate didn't really change their mind. The League of United Latin American Citizens hosted a debate party in Las Vegas, and attendees were focusing mostly on immigration issues. DACA recipient and Miami resident Gaby Pacheco says it's obvious that President Biden was stumbling.
I think reality is that President Biden is getting older. Reality is that President Biden has always had this issue. We know that he stutters. And I don't want to hold that against him.
Both Donald Trump and Joe Biden on the campaign trail today after last night's debate in Atlanta. Former President Trump at a rally in Chesapeake, Virginia earlier today, commenting on President Biden's performance at last night's debate.
The question every voter should be asking themselves today is not whether Joe Biden can survive a 90-minute debate performance, but whether America can survive 4 more years of crooked Joe Biden in the White House.
President Biden kicking off a post-debate trip to multiple locations today. First on the agenda, Raleigh, North Carolina. Here's the president at that event referring to last night's debate.
I'm here in North Carolina for one reason, because I intend to win this state in November. Are you going to see that? I think we are. And Roy's right. We win here, we win the election.
Back here in Middle Tennessee, a whistleblower claims homeowners in Rutherford County may not be paying what they should be in property taxes. Ken Weaver explains.
Channel 4 says property appraiser Richard Kincaid has filed an ethics complaint claiming his boss, property assessor Rob Mitchell, has pushed staff to conceal property assessment changes, which would have increased current property tax bills for some homes, costing the county an unspecified amount of money in lost revenue. Mitchell, who is seeking re-election, was asked about the allegation by WSMV Investigates and denied the allegations, calling them politically motivated, but said he can't say anything else due to ongoing investigations by county and state authorities. The Rutherford County Ethics Board takes up the complaint on July 17th. They could send it to the county attorney or district attorney for further investigation. Ken Weaver, WTN News.
That is the latest news. Traffic and weather, they are next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's 7 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. It's hour number 3 of the drive on a big day after the debate. Wow, what a debate that was. And what the heck was this?
Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Yes, we beat Medicare. Well, hold it. Why would we want to beat Medicare? I mean, what in the world was he talking about last night? Look, I mean, there's a lot of stuff to absorb and a lot of stuff that has happened since the debate last night, and this is not easy stuff. This is complex. There are no easy answers as to what happens next. A lot of people say he should go, but there are other reasons why he might not go. And some things that I've just learned today, which really raised some serious questions about what exactly can the Democrats pull off right now. And there's about $145 million at stake that they could lose that they've raised for the Biden campaign that can only be transferred to one human being, and that's Kamala Harris, as the way at least I understand it. But we got a lot of ground to cover, and it was a very interesting night last night. Let's start off with a couple of the moments that everybody is talking about, like this one where Biden said, hey, we finally beat Medicare. I don't know what the hell he was talking about.
Making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare.
I'm doing, and what was that little squeaky thing going on there?
Need some WD-40.
Give me some WD-40 on that, would you? If I was driving in a car and that was doing that, you know, that would drive me crazy. I would say, what the world is that all about? I mean, that's almost as bad as the other one. You know, the other one? I don't know. It's beyond me, one way or the other. There was another moment from the debate last night that a lot of people paid attention to. Trump had a great comeback. He said, I have no earthly idea what the man is saying.
And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either.
Yeah, it was very confusing, and there were moments like that where he's and the weird thing, if you watched it, is that when Trump was speaking, Biden would just stare off, and then you would see the eyes sort of go dead, just like, you know, just nothing there, and his mouth was hanging open, and it was odd just to watch him. And it was not a good debate performance. I think everybody thought that, except for Joe Biden. Everybody seems to think Joe Biden did poorly, except Joe Biden.
I think we did well.
I think we did well, he said, at the Waffle House in Atlanta. He stopped by, a party where Democrats were watching the debate there in Atlanta and pulled out an old line.
These guys are nothing but lying, dog-faced pony soldiers.
Well, what could you say about that performance? I mean, almost everybody hated it, but I mean, you know, if you're the press secretary for the campaign, you got to go out there and put lipstick on the pig, right?
So, look, he got off to a rough start. You know, he said afterwards, I have a sore throat. You may have seen that he went to the Waffle House in Atlanta after the debate, got some food. You're going to see him on the stump today. He's going to North Carolina. He's got a big rally there. He'll be in New York later today at the Stonewall event. You know, business as usual as far as he's concerned on the campaign. But again, when it comes down to perhaps the night could have gone a little bit better for Joe Biden, but when it comes to the issues that this campaign is about, the issues that matter to the American people, President Joe Biden is on their side. He's fighting for them. And that is what our campaign will continue to drive.
Even Kamala Harris, the vice president of the United States, Biden's running mate, it said, well, you know, yeah, it was a slow start. But again, she's out there trying to put lipstick on the pig. It really, she tried to make the best of what was a really horrible debate performance.
What we saw tonight is the president making a very clear contrast with Donald Trump on all of the issues that matter to the American people. Yes, there was a slow start, but it was a strong finish. And what became very clear through the course of the night is that Joe Biden is fighting on behalf of the American people, on substance, on policy, on performance. Joe Biden is extraordinarily strong. And
I'm sorry,
that
on
cannot
substance
be
and
debated.
policy and performance tonight, I mean, the president's performance tonight clearly was disappointing for his supporters.
That's Anderson Cooper giving it back to the vice president of these United States, just pointing out, not a particularly great performance. Mitch Landrieu is part of the Biden campaign. He's the co-chair of the campaign.
There's always a truth-telling session when these things happen. Joe Biden is not averse to hearing things that are bad. He has to make the decision about whether he's going to be a candidate or not. He has done that, and he's going to be the nominee. So, again, he started off slow last night. I thought he had some really good points during the debate.
Well, did he? Or did he make a lot of mistakes? Because the CNN fact checker, I mean, not somebody who you would think is going to be all that critical of anything that a Democrat has to say. Well, the fact checker came on and said, well, he made a lot of mistakes in the course of the debate.
Some of them. He said he's the only president in a while who didn't have any troops dying anywhere in the world. No. Troops have, of course, died on his watch.
By the way, that's a huge one. How do you forget that people have died while you're president of the United States carrying out your policies? How can you possibly forget that? That's not something we should just gloss over. That's a big one.
He's put in a $15 per shot cap on insulin and Medicare. It's a $35 a month cap. He said it's a $200 cap on overall drug spending in Medicare. It's $2,000 a year. He said the border now has fewer crossings than when Trump was in office. That's generally not true. He said, or at least strongly suggested, unemployment was at 15% when he took office. It was actually 6.4. He said Trump wants to get rid of Social Security. Trump doesn't. He said billionaires pay 8.2% in taxes. It's much higher. He said Trump told Americans to inject bleach amid COVID. We know Trump made foolish comments about scientists studying disinfectant injection, but didn't frame it as advice to people. And Biden said the Border Patrol endorsed him. No, its union supported the border bill he'd supported, never endorsed him himself.
I mean, there's a lot of mistakes there. Would you agree? So, how did, the pundits and the Democrat spokespeople who get sent out, how did they react to all this? Not well. It seems like there was sort of a universal feeling about what had happened. Here's Gayle King over on CBS.
Kept saying, he had a cold, but this is the thing. When you have a cold, there's many things you can take for it. We didn't know he had a cold until he stood up. A cold doesn't force you to lose your train of thought. A cold doesn't force you to just throw things out randomly that to many people made no sense. And so how long do we continue to act like that we didn't see what we just saw last night? I thought for many people, the word I keep hearing, it was very painful to watch.
Yeah, painful. It was painful. I mean, even if you dislike Joe Biden, it's sort of painful to watch somebody struggle like that. What are they doing putting this guy out on the stage in a debate? It did not work well for them, and I think the numbers are going to reflect that in big ways in the days ahead. I'll give you some flash numbers we got about that in a minute. Chuck Todd over at NBC said, well, you know what? He was in contact with a lot of Democrats, and they were in panic mode.
One of the things was, would either candidate look like the caricature that the other campaign has been trying to paint of him? And at the end of the day, Joe Biden looks like the caricature that conservative media has been painting, and there were no clips tonight, right? This was, you saw it before your eyes. Look, I don't want to just tell you what I think here. I've been talking to a lot of leaders in the Democratic Party, electeds, coalition leaders. There's a full-on panic about this performance.
A full-on panic, says Chuck Todd. When Chuck Todd says there's a full-on panic and Democrats are panicked, you know they're panicked because, he usually carries water for the Democrats. Van Jones at CNN. Look, I'll tell you what, say what you will about Van Jones. He's been rather sober-minded about all this thing, and he said after what he saw, he was very worried.
I love Joe Biden. I work for Joe Biden. He didn't do well at all. He did not do well at all. But I just want to speak from my heart. I love that guy. That's a good man. He loves his country. He's doing the best that he can. but he had a test to meet tonight to restore confidence of the country and of the base, and he failed to do that. And I think there's a lot of people who are going to want to see him consider taking a different course now. We're still far from our convention, and there is time for this party to figure out a different way forward if he will allow us to do that. But that was not what we needed from Joe Biden, and it's personally painful for a lot of people. It's not just panic, it's pain.
Panic and pain. Panic and pain. Panic and pain. Former Obama speechwriter, a man who has a podcast, his name is Jon Favreau, not the actor, but he's a speechwriter. He said that this was, well, I can't even use the exact language. I had to clean it up a little bit.
I think it was a disaster. I think it was like maybe the worst debate I've ever seen in my entire life. Joe Biden just in every single way failed at that debate. And I don't know what else to say there except that and then I won't make any other predictions now, but it was a disaster.
I mean, it doesn't get much worse than this when these are people who normally would be supporting you and try to put the best possible spin on it. They're just simply throwing up their hands and saying, "Lord help us, this was bad. Lord help us, this was bad." Kristen Welkett over at NBC.
There is widespread panic among Democrats. I got a number of text messages this evening, Democrats reaching out to say this is difficult to watch. Where does this go from here? One Democratic lawmaker, Tom, going so far as to say this race is effectively over.
It's over. I mean, goodness gracious. That's serious, isn't it? Willie Geist.
The bigger problem is that regular people who don't watch cable news every day, people who are not on Twitter, people who don't absorb politics the way we do, they watched last night and said, my God, I don't think he's up to this. They did tune in last night. Many of them Democrats hoping for the best.
They didn't get the best. So let me read through some stories that I think are sort of instructive as to what could happen next. First thing I noticed is that former President Barack Obama admitted today that, well, it was a bad performance at the debate, but still urged voters to back his former VP over Donald Trump. Bad debate nights happen. Trust me, I know, said Obama on X. And then he added, but this election is a choice between someone who's fought for ordinary folks his entire life and someone who only cares about himself. So he's standing with Joe Biden, his former vice president. Last night didn't change things. It's why so much is at stake in November. I thought that was interesting because it seems to me that it's going to take, I think somebody pointed out that what it would take would be taken, have to have like Obama, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, and maybe somebody else to come over and sit down with Joe and say, Joe, we really don't think you can get it across the goal line. And that'd be a hard conversation to have. And I don't think that they want to have that conversation. And I don't think Biden is smart enough or he can set his ego aside enough to decide to just step down. I mean, if you're paying attention, it doesn't sound very good, right? But, Biden today in front of he's out in North Carolina. He's got a teleprompter. So all the things that he forgot to say last night, his speechwriters put into a teleprompter so he could say them today in North Carolina. And I'll say he was fired up. It's a lot easier when you're reading it off a teleprompter, I got to admit.
I don't walk as easy as I used to. I don't speak as smoothly as I used to. I don't debate as well as I used to. But I know what I do know. I know how to tell the truth. I know right from wrong. And I know how to do this job. I know how to get things done. And I know, like millions of Americans know, when you get knocked down, you get back up.
I mean, that's good speech writing, but it's not him. He's an empty vessel there into which words are being poured. And he's just reading words off a teleprompter. But a little stronger showing today than yesterday. Trump was out today. He did very well. You know, he's got the wind at his back. Most people are going to make their determination of having watched, and there are about 49 million people who watch live, about 50 million people, out of a nation of 330 million people. We had 50 million who were watching. And by the way, Fox had better numbers than CNN with the CNN debate. Isn't that something? I think that's fascinating. But anyway, you know, what can they do? Here we go. This is a story that's really all about what they might do. This guide, this is in foxnews.com, explains how such an extraordinary move could occur. That is, removing Biden and replacing him. Biden is currently the presumptive Democrat nominee because he has secured the overwhelming majority of pledged Democratic delegates awarded after each state's primary election. So he has enough to be the nominee. He's over the top. He has clinched, as they say. Former President Donald Trump is also the presumptive nominee. Democrat National Committee rules give the power of the nomination to those delegates. Delegates must, in good conscience, reflect the sentiment of those who elected them, meaning Democrat primary voters. In other words, as long as Biden wants to stay on the ballot, then those delegates are expected to vote for him. But since the rules do not impose any legal obligation on delegates to vote for the candidate whom they are pledged, a mass defection is at least theoretically possible. The party will formally nominate Biden when the delegates participate in a roll call vote. Now, that normally takes place during a party convention, for which Democrats that would start August 19th. But this year, the Democrats have said they will hold a virtual roll call. That's an early roll call on August 7th. That's so that they can technically get Biden onto the ballot in the state of Ohio. They have to do it earlier, and so they're going to have a roll call done virtually. I guess a gigantic Democratic Zoom call of some kind. That's, you know, it all has to do with legislation that Ohio signed that required people to be qualified by a certain date. Now, the plan is that a willing Biden would become the nominee on August 7th at the latest. If Biden steps aside before that roll call, then his delegates will no longer be pledged to him, and essentially you're talking about an open convention when they get together in August. Any candidate who is eligible to be president could emerge, including candidates who did not run for the presidential primaries, and delegates could vote for them. Clearly, an endorsement from Biden would be critical for any one of those candidates. While the most logical contender to receive an endorsement would be Vice President Kamala Harris, Biden could choose anyone. Any change in the nominee after the roll call vote would be even more of a political disaster. DNC rules give broad power to the committee to replace a candidate in the event of a death, resignation, or disability. So that could be possible. So a lot of stuff to consider there. 25 minutes now past the hour.
The Guaranteed Offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lock boxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
So, just how many actually tuned in to last night's presidential debate? We've got some new ratings numbers we'll pass along to you. We'll also hear some thoughts from Tennessee's 4th District Congressman on the presidential debate and election. Those stories coming up at 5:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Very quickly, because I ran over in the last segment, I just want to get this in. There is a big problem, a money problem, that Democrats would have if they replace Biden. The campaign to reelect Biden has fundraised no small amount of money, about $195 million on hand as of the last time they reported. Despite the poor performance, Biden's campaign is reporting it raised $14 million online last night. Still, if Biden does in fact drop out of the race, the money can only be transferred to one woman, Vice President Kamala Harris. Campaign finance laws do not allow for just anyone nominated by a party to receive funds that were not directly donated to them. Because Harris is on the ticket, she would be the only one who could replace Biden while keeping that money intact. This would because the funds were already in Harris's disposal, as she's currently a member of the ticket. She would maintain access to all the funds in the committees and could use them to advance her presidential candidacy, according to a legal advisor. This is from the Washington Examiner. So how do they solve that problem? Pro-Biden super PACs could keep the money, but campaign finance law prohibits those PACs from directly coordinating with campaigns. Harris doesn't immediately receive the nomination because she's vice president, and there is a list of people Democrats are eyeing for a possible replacement. So that is a problem. I don't know how you get around that. So, again, it's the first I've seen of it. It certainly is a big problem, and I don't know that there's a way to finesse it. 31 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock, time for the news.
Good afternoon. It is 5:31, and I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We've had some clouds roll in here on Music Row. We are at 91 degrees. We'll have the latest traffic report and a steamy weekend forecast in just a few minutes. So, how many people actually watched the debate last night? ABC's Jason Nathanson takes a look.
He's not equipped to be president.
You're the sucker. You're the loser.
Thursday night's CNN debate between President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump drew a lot of eyeballs, 51.3 million viewers across 17 networks. And while it's a super strong number in this day and age of fractured TV watching, it was well below their last meetup in 2020 when 73 million people were watching. Most people watched on CNN channels, around 9 million, followed by Fox, then ABC. Since televised debates started in 1960, the average audience has been around 63.8 million viewers.
In the wake of Joe Biden's performance in last night's debate, many are asking, so what if Mr. Biden were replaced on the Democratic ticket? Tennessee 4th District Congressman Scott Desjardins tells WTN's Nashville's Morning News with Dan Mandus this morning that he thinks it's really too late to pose a real threat to Trump if they were to change candidates.
I see it. If we have the right strategist running Donald Trump's campaign, I don't think it's as big a problem because we're pretty late in the game here, not too far from the election. It's going to take them a little while to maneuver this if they can do it and put in a new candidate. And when you're having to go deep into your bench to try to pull out somebody to say, this is our guy now, Donald Trump just needs to be Donald Trump and talk about what he's going to do. Well, they're clearly in a weak position.
Of course, stay with us. Brian Wilson will continue to offer more of his in-depth and insightful analysis, as always, right after traffic and weather. That is the latest news. Yep, traffic and weather, they're next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Busy bee when you need heat or cold AC. And right now, man, you need the cold AC, don't you? And if it's not working, if it's a little, it's, you walk in the room and say, wow, that air conditioner is not getting the job done. Well, what you need to do is call the number I would call, 615-775-7833. They will buzz right over to your house and get you going. And right now, they got a special going on that will actually work to your advantage. If you call them and say, come fix my air conditioner, they will waive the $89 dispatch fee as long as there's some repair work that needs to be done. And certainly you wouldn't be calling unless there were, right? 10% off also all indoor air quality products. And if you have a big HVAC project, like, okay, that thing's been, long overdue for being replaced. We're going to have to fix it. We're going to have to replace it. You can get up to 12 months, no interest, no payment with approved credit for 12 months, no interest, no payment. Plumbing up to 15 months, no interest, no payment with approved credit. So there's all kinds of specials they got going on right now. Let me just hit a couple of them. Plumbing, you need a new hot water heater. How about a tankless water heater, $500 off? How about an upright Essency water heater, $500 off? How about a whole home drain repipe, 15% off? So many more things that you can do. You need to be a member of the Beehive Club. Just get that straightened out. It's really to your advantage to be a member of the Beehive Club. And they're looking for HVAC and plumbing people. If you know somebody, get in touch with them. 615-775-7833. Online at busybhvac.com.
Hey, it's Dan Mandis, and I am so glad that California Closets has fixed my closet catastrophe. After exact measuring and planning, they came over and got to work. Yeah, once it was all plotted out on their 3D CAD system, the pieces are measured, cut, and precisely installed into my space. It was clean, fast, and professional, and above all, my new closets look and function great. Now, this was my dormer, and now this is my new dormer thanks to California Closets. Look at all of this added space for shirts and shoes, you name it, and it is cut so precisely, simply amazing. And my old closet that has now been reborn as the ultimate in style and functionality, making the best use of the space that I had. They can work on just about anything: bedrooms, garages, home offices, closets, pantries, and so much more. Find them online, CaliforniaClosets.com, and see what they can do for you. You can schedule a free design consultation. Mention my name, CaliforniaClosets.com.
It is 39 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock, and you know what time it is. And you're just itching to get started, aren't you? It's time for another exciting edition of Phone Your Farb Friday. I don't know what's on your mind. What are you thinking about? Are you thinking about, this? Are you thinking about...
We finally beat Medicare.
We finally beat Medicare. Well, wait a minute. Did anybody want to beat Medicare? I don't know. What did he mean? Anyway, if you got something you want to say, you got a bee in your bonnet, you got a burr in your saddle, you got a bug in a place. I hope you never, ever have a bug. 615-737-9986. That's the magic number that gets you on our 100,000-watt soapbox, where you can express yourself. And while we're waiting on those calls to be logged in and ready to go, very quickly, the New York Times has now called on Biden to drop out of the 24 presidential race to serve his country. New York Times editorial board, this is a very liberal newspaper and read by the liberal elite, called on President Biden to step aside as the presumptive Democrat nominee in the 24 presidential race one day after his abysmal performance in a debate against Donald Trump. They insist that he's an admirable president in their mind. The liberal gray lady concluded the incumbent appeared on the debate stage as a shadow of a great public servant and would be engaging in a reckless gamble by continuing his presidency. There's no reason for the party to risk the stability and security of the country by forcing voters to choose between Mr. Trump's deficiencies and those of Mr. Biden, the board wrote. It's too big a bet to simply hope Americans will overlook or discount Mr. Biden's age and infirmity that they see with their own eyes. There you go. That's pretty big stuff coming from the editorial board of the vaunted New York Times, such as it is. To the phone lines we go. People are stacked up and ready. Pat in Castilian Springs. Hello, Pat. You're on with Brian on the Drive. What do you say, Pat?
Good evening, Brian. I'm just wondering, of course, Biden's off in the nowhere stare while Trump was talking, but do you think I looked at his left side of his face, and I think he's had a stroke.
Well, he's had two aneurysms. I know that. That's well documented. It happened a long time ago. I don't think he's getting enough blood flow to the brain, quite frankly. Honestly, I don't say that as sort of a cheap joke. I don't think he's getting enough blood to the brain. And I think it's something not right. You're right. It didn't look good last night, did he?
Yeah. Like I said, I just noticed his left eye and left face, and I'm like, I hadn't noticed that before. Something's going on, so I just wondered if anybody else had made note of it.
All right. Thank you. I think a lot of people probably saw the same thing you saw. I mean, it was very evident. You didn't even have to listen to the sound. You knew something was not right. Betty in Alexandria. Hello, Betty. You're on with Brian on the Drive. What's on your mind today, Betty?
Good afternoon, Brian. Actually, it's Debbie.
I'm sorry.
Debbie.
My apologies, Debbie.
That's fine. I just wanted to get your take on if you think that Biden had an earpiece in his left ear. I noticed the same thing that your previous caller said, but, he's always glancing off, even in the other clips, before the debate, and it's always like he's trying to listen to something. Yeah. And I just wonder
and there was a moment, a lot of people pointed out that there was a moment where he touched his ear, almost as if he was pushing the thing back in his ear or something.
Right.
Well, look, here's what I would say to you is that it would be a dangerous thing to do. It'd be against the rules of the debate, for one thing. It has been accused, presidential candidates have been accused of that in the past, and nobody's ever been able to put it together. But, I mean, if they were transmitting information to like a secret earpiece, I just have a feeling that the other campaign would be, would have some guy there trying to find, the frequency, Kenneth, if you will, find out what frequency it was on, and try to intercept that. I mean, I guess it's possible. And I did see that moment where he touched his ear. And they accused, I think it was W of doing that one time. And then they showed that there was a strange back, sort of a square thing in his back. Nobody quite knew what it was. And it was underneath his jacket. And it seemed to show up on camera. But he claimed, and there was a moment where he seemed a little startled, like somebody had said something to him. I remember that. I remember it distinctly, but nobody ever was able to prove it. So I don't know. It's entirely possible, and maybe that's what he was doing when he was staring off into space. He was listening to what they were saying in his earpiece. If that's the case, I got to tell you, as somebody who worked in television and was used to having people talking into my ear while I was trying to read a teleprompter, It's the most maddening thing in the world. It's hard to do both things well. Listen and also read the teleprompter. He's not reading the teleprompter, but how can he respond to what Trump is saying if he's not listening to Trump, but listening to the voices in his head? It's a hard thing to do, I would say. So my guess is probably not, and I think they would be looking to uncover that. That would blow the debate. I mean, that would end it all, wouldn't it? If you could prove that you had recordings of the actual transmissions to that earpiece, and they got to have had people, if they suspected that, they got to have people backstage trying to scan the frequencies to figure out where it is. Not that hard to do. Jerry in Murfreesboro, you're up on the drive. What do you say, Jerry?
Yeah, Brian, I just have 2 quick points. I was wondering, why didn't they ask Biden about if he would accept the election? Is there any reason why they didn't ask him?
Well, I think look. I think overall it was pretty fair, but I mean, there've been some questions in the past about whether Trump would accept the outcome, and I don't think the same thing has been said of Biden. But to be honest with you, they should have asked both of them that question. I think you make a very good point. Most people felt like I'd love you to know your thoughts, Jerry. Did you think that other than that, the officiating of the affair was fair and balanced and up the middle?
I think it was. Yeah, I mean, I'll give them credit to that.
Yeah, I think most people felt like they did a pretty good job of just keeping the train running down the track, not getting diverted, keeping control of the debate, and also asking, fairly pertinent questions. I think that's for sure. Alan in Hartsville. Alan, you're up with Brian on the drive. What do you say?
Thanks for taking my call. Just a quick comment about the general character of this administration. Recently here, the Department of Homeland Security declared that former military personnel are like one of the greatest terrorist threats in the United States. I'm sorry. I'm an honorably discharged veteran of the United States Marine Corps. I fought war for this country. My criminal record is clean. I have a hard time killing venomous snakes that are around my house. I'm not hurting anyone. And the guy actually said when he was first elected, if you didn't vote for me, you're a traitor. Yeah. I got 4 words for you, Mr. President.
Are they clean?
Say 'em on
There you go. You can't say them on the radio. All right. Thank you for that, man. I appreciate your commentary, and thank you for your service. Adam in Nashville. Hey, Adam, what's on your mind? What do you think?
Well, Brian, I've got 2 totally different things. So I'm going to start with the non-political thing, which I finally remembered. I really miss Mac Morey and his wide, wonderful world of sports.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if there's some way you could bring that back at 5:25 p.m.
Well, he's moved on to Kansas City, so we can't. By the way, there's talk about it being a small world. Listen to this. I went to see my dermy doc. On Wednesday, I had to have a little thing, cut off my hand, and little minor surgery, nothing big. And I walk in, and the person says, "Hey, you're Brian Wilson, aren't you?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Do you know Mac Morey?" I said, "Yeah, I know Mac Morey. I love Mac Morey." He said, "I'm his fiance." She was my fiance. She was one of the technicians who was working there at the dermy doc. She was just lovely. Hannah's her name.
Sure, it was. Sure.
Yeah. And so I immediately texted Mac Morey in Kansas City and said, "Small world, how about this?" And he said, "Wow, that's amazing." I said, "You're in good hands." But he's loving his new job. And, he did tell us that he has to come back. He's got a fiance here, so he's going to be coming back quite a bit. And he said when he's coming back in town, he would let us know, and he would love to sit in and do Mac Morey's Wide World of Sports. But, okay, the other question real quick?
I just wanted to say I think that the vice presidential pick is going to be Glenn Youngkin out of Virginia.
Yeah, did you watch him today? There was an event in Virginia. Youngkin was on the stage. That would be interesting, but from what I understand, at least what you read, he hasn't received the vetting materials. And the people who've received there's like 6 of them that have received the vetting materials. I mean, I don't have any inside clue, but I mean, what you read, and people are supposed to be somewhat authoritative about knowing something, that it's really coming down to J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio, or Governor Burgum. And some of the insiders are saying the person who has the best chance is Burgum. But who knows? I mean, it could be Youngkin. It could be, Trump is milking that for everything it's worth and won't make the announcement, he says, until the actual convention. Have I got time? I can get one more in very quick. Jesse in Shelbyville, you're on with Brian on the drive. You got to move quick, Jesse. What's on your mind?
Hey, Brian, I just glad I didn't pay for the event, the debate. I'm glad it wasn't pay-per-view because I'd want my money back. I'm a Trump supporter, but I think Trump did a terrible job last night of not putting him on the ropes and swinging hard and putting him on the mat. That might be the only chance he has to do it, and I think he failed miserably.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be a second debate. Now, apparently, Biden told the folks that he was still committed to the September debate. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. 51 past the hour now. How many times you heard someone describe something as being the gold standard when it comes to finding an investment that protects you from runaway inflation? Gold is the gold standard. It's a tried and true store of value, consistent across generations. Maybe you've thought about adding gold or other precious metals to your portfolio, but you feel like you don't have the knowledge you need to make a smart decision. That's the way I felt, but I got the professional guidance I needed at Nashville Gold and Coin. Now, the way this works is you make an appointment. You sit down with a one-on-one with my friends at Nashville Gold and Coin. They will answer your questions and help you make the metals investment, the precious metals investment that's right for you. It's friendly. You'll learn a lot. You'll never be subjected to a high-pressure sales pitch. Gold and silver can be a safe haven in uncertain economic times, and my friend at Nashville Gold and Coin are standing by to answer all your questions about the precious metals market. And if you have some old coins laying around gathering dust, bring them along. You might be surprised just how much they are worth. To set up that one-on-one appointment, go to NashvilleGoldandCoin.com. That's NashvilleGoldandCoin.com.
Hey, it's Dan Mandis, and I am so glad that California Closets has fixed my closet catastrophe. After exact measuring and planning, they came over and got to work. Yeah, once it was all plotted out on their 3D CAD system, the pieces are measured, cut, and precisely installed into my space. It was clean, fast, and professional, and above all, my new closets look and function great. Now, this was my dormer, and now this is my new dormer thanks to California Closets. Look at all of this added space for shirts and shoes, you name it, and it is cut so precisely, simply amazing. And my old closet that has now been reborn as the ultimate in style and functionality, making the best use of the space that I had. They can work on just about anything: bedrooms, garages, home offices, closets, pantries, and so much more. Find them online, CaliforniaClosets.com, and see what they can do for you. You can schedule a free design consultation. Mention my name, CaliforniaClosets.com.
Good evening. It is 6 p.m. and it's officially the weekend. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We've still got a mix of clouds and sun. We're at 91 degrees. We'll get the traffic report to you and a pretty steamy weekend forecast in just a few minutes. Some potential voters say last night's debate between former President Trump and President Biden really didn't do anything to change their mind, while others say watching it, well, it was almost painful. President Biden admits he didn't do as well as he had hoped, while former President Trump is taking a victory lap. In Michigan, here's the thoughts of one voter. Her name, Lexus Zaidan.
Biden either needs to change course and change policy, or Biden needs to step down. He's not fit to be president. And again, I think that people are finally recognizing that.
Both Biden and Trump out on the campaign trail today. The former president, Donald Trump, at a rally in Chesapeake, Virginia earlier today. And of course, he was commenting on President Joe Biden's performance at that debate last night.
The biggest problem for our country is not Joe Biden's personal decline. It's that Joe Biden's policies are causing America's decline at a level that we've never seen before.
Back here in Middle Tennessee, News 2 reports an investigation is underway after a deadly shooting incident in Murfreesboro last evening. Police were called to a townhome on Nightshade Drive at about 8 o'clock. Murfreesboro police reported one person was shot and killed and the alleged gunman also dead. Authorities said the preliminary investigation indicates the shooting was a domestic violence incident. James Shannon, 29, is believed to have shot his girlfriend, Marguerite Barksdale, age 37, and then turned the gun on himself after an altercation. And finally, for many, today is the big 4th of July period getaway day. ABC's Alex Stone says a record number of people are likely to go through airport security checkpoints today.
Airports are crowded. Today is expected to be the busiest day in history at U.S. airports. AAA says the top destinations over the 4th of July period are Seattle, Orlando, and Anchorage. The travel website Hopper says the busiest airports are Atlanta, Dallas, and Denver, which makes sense since those are the big hubs for Delta, American, and United.
And there is quite a bit of traffic around Nashville Airport, so yeah, keep that in mind if you're headed out this evening. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather are next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Hey, good evening, everybody. 7 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I am Brian Wilson, and this is hour number 4 of The Drive on a Friday. We got about an hour before we hand it over to Mark Levin, and we begin the weekend. You got a good weekend planned? You got family and friends going to be around? A little cookout on the patio? I'm thinking about that.
Too hot for that, man.
Yeah, I'm batching it. It's me and the bulldog this weekend. The social butterfly that I have married she's flitting around the country once again, leaving me here to take care of the bulldog.
That's tough, isn't it? I bet she left you a list of things to do, too, didn't she?
Well, you can be sure of that. The thing about it is I got a lot of things to do because I got to tell you, we had a little storm that came through here, just ripped and snorted and tore things up, and I got to clean up a bunch of mess from that, branches that are down, that kind of stuff. That's really, I got to tell you, that was intense. Sitting out, a little storm came through, and I was really worried about it, and so I went out on the back porch and watching the rain come down, and it was raining like crazy. And then
this was on Wednesday, right?
This on Wednesday,
yeah.
Right? And then it really got intense. And Cabana wife's there on the cabana with me. She said, "I'm going inside. This makes me nervous." And I got to tell you, I haven't heard anything about any cloud with rotation, but the wind that came through there felt like to me like it had rotation in it. And I mean, I've done a little weather. I consider myself sort of a minor student of weather, but I'd never had experienced something quite like that, except for the tornado that I went through in Mount Juliet, which I was a little further away from. But this came right through the backyard and over the pool, and I mean, it tore up branches and did all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, it was pretty heavy duty. I noticed even looking out the window here on Music Road, it was the rain was coming down sideways.
Yeah.
At one point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got a lot of that stuff to clean up, and so I'll be doing all that, and she left me a whole list of honeydews and some things that I need to get. That's the way it is. But anyway, she'll be back. She'll be back on Sunday. Let's see. What am I going to talk about? Oh yeah, I want to hit some more of the Biden stuff that's happening right now. To me, I think we have to pay attention. Even though you don't care about the New York Times editorial board, and I don't care about the New York Times editorial board, Democrats do pay attention to this, and so does the White House. I mean, there are, and this is the way they look at it in Washington. I'm not saying the way it should be, but it's the way it is. The New York Times and the Washington Post are considered newspapers of record, and to be looked at very closely. And Democrats love these two newspapers, and when the New York Times editorial board says something, it carries weight. It does. And here's what has happened. This is the new. I don't subscribe to the New York Times, and I don't intend to give them any of my money. So I'm looking at what other people are saying about what the New York Times has done. Okay, this comes from the New York Post. The New York Times editorial board called on President Biden to step aside as the presumptive Democrat nominee in the 24 presidential race Friday, one day after his abysmal performance in a debate against Donald Trump. I guess they posted this on their website. While insisting that Biden 81 had been an admirable president, the liberal gray lady concluded the incumbent appeared on the debate stage as the shadow of a great public servant and would be engaging in a reckless gamble by continuing the presidency. There is no reason for the party to risk the stability and security of the country. Again, this is the New York Times writing, by forcing voters to choose between Mr. Trump's deficiencies and those of Mr. Biden's. It's too big a bet to simply hope Americans will overlook or discount Mr. Biden's age and infirmity that they see with their own eyes. Mr. Biden answered an urgent question on Thursday night. It is not the answer that he and his supporters were hoping for, the Time concluded. But if the risk of a second Trump term is as great as he says it is, and we agree with him that the danger is enormous, well, after all, it's the editorial board of the New York Times, then his dedication to this country leaves him and his party only one choice. The editorial was published 2 hours after Biden arrived in New York City for the first of a 2-day fundraising swing, which will include a high-dollar event in the Hamptons on Saturday. let me just say this about having watched things happen in Washington. There are these things that happen in Washington where, somebody is like politically a dead man walking. And sometimes it's a nominee, sometimes it's this, sometimes it's that. And sometimes it's a candidate. Presidential candidates, for example, when you have a lot of people running for a nomination, they pull something stupid and they it becomes very clear that they're going to be rejected by the general public. And there is this period of well, no, I don't think so. I think I'm doing better than that. It's a story that'll go away in a couple of days. That's what you always hear. Yeah, well, it's going to be a bad news cycle for us, but it'll go away in a couple of days. Sometimes there's an investigation going on, and it's very clear that by the drip of the investigation, and a little story comes every day. It has an impact, and everybody can see that it's not going to end well for that person, except for that person themselves. They seem to be blind. Maybe they've surrounded themselves with yes people, yes men and women, and maybe that's it. Maybe they just don't have a good grip on it, or maybe it's ego. I mean, listen, to run for the office of the presidency, let's be honest, you got to have a bit of ego. So, the question is exactly, how this will all unfold. It seems to me that Biden is in trouble, and everybody seems to know it except Biden. And his campaign is saying, no, everything's fine. And that's what they'll say until the one moment where it's not. So I don't know. I mean, the drip has begun, I think. And every day the story will take on, a little bit of the, there's one story. The next day, there's another story. There's another story, and soon next you got a bucket of water, and it adds up, and it becomes overwhelming, and you have to do something. I see problems here that will be hard to overcome for the Democrats, but not perhaps insurmountable. I am surprised that Barack Obama did not keep his powder dry here. I mean, I don't know what happened. I don't know if the campaign called him and said, you've got to help us out here. You got to get out there and say something. So what Obama said was, he had a bad night. I've had bad nights. I came back. He'll come back. This is the guy we want. Democrats chill is sort of what he said today. I'm paraphrasing, but that's pretty much what he said. But when you see something like this, the New York Times coming out very strong and saying we got a problem. I mean, and remember, there were problems even before this debate. I mean, the numbers weren't looking particularly good. The Trump numbers continue to look okay for Trump. As I told you yesterday, the New York Times had a poll that came out, the general election poll, which had in the past it had Biden in the lead, now has Trump up by 4. Trump up by 4. There's a Survey USA, Trump, this is a sort of a daily thing they do every day. Just take the temperature of people. Trump up by 2 in a general election number. And I spent a lot of time talking about battleground states and which of them are, doing well. And I'm telling you right now, if you look at some of these battleground states, Trump's doing okay. Let's see. Do I have anything here recently? Wisconsin. They have it as a tie. That's Marquette. But if you look at the 5-way, they have Trump up by 3. Georgia, Trump up by 5. Nevada, Trump up by 3. I'm just looking through some past stuff here. Arizona, Trump up by 6. If you look at the 5-way, Trump up by 10, according to one poll. And Missouri, I think everybody knows how Missouri's going to go, Trump. Here's Arizona, Trump up by 4. Georgia, Trump up by 4. Nevada, Trump up by 3. Pennsylvania, Trump up by 2. Wisconsin, Trump up by 3, and all those numbers are been pretty consistent. And he had the wind at his back with the numbers. They were starting to come his way before the debate, and now the general sense is, wow, not looking so good for Joe Biden right now. and looking better and better and better every time we look at a poll. So they were already getting nervous. And they were going to give him this one debate to see if he could come out there and convince them that he indeed, could rally, that he was worthy of their support. And he just failed miserably. You knew it in the first few moments of the debate, right? And by the time we got to this moment in the debate, you were absolutely certain that he had not done well.
Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
What in the world was was going on with him? What was he trying to say? Nobody knows. And so, he thought, when he went out there and they asked him, how do you think you did? He was all about, I think I did okay. I think I did just fine. He said, I think we had a good turnout. Let's see where it is. Yeah, here it is.
I think you did well.
I think we did well. So how much of this is Joe Biden and how much of it is Jill Biden? I think it's a good question, don't you? Got a story here. This one from let's see. I can't tell. I think it's from the Washington Post. I'm not sure where this is from. I found it on Yahoo News. I hate it when I can't tell you that, but I can't tell you that. I just don't know. Let's start with the obvious. No one actually knows the best path forward for the Democrat Party in 2024, and all the options in front are bad. A second Biden term is seeming less and less likely, and Democrat voters and pundits seem increasingly nervous, and that our marching orders are to a funeral. But the prospects of challenging an incumbent president just a few months before the election also seems hubristic and dangerous, especially when the Democrat Party is deeply divided. The vice president is unpopular and has largely been marginalized, and there's no obvious plan B. The worst of all worlds seems to be a scenario where Biden continues his campaign, but the party mutinies and an ugly replacement battle fails at everything except mortality, injuring an already weak candidate. It's hard to overstate the stakes of this election. Joe Biden surely understands them as well, which is why I hope that in the aftermath of this debate, he's going to do some serious soul-searching with his advisors and his colleagues and the person he seems to trust most, his wife, Jill. And the headline is, Jill Biden must step up now to help oust her husband. I don't know. I don't know if she's going to do that. Seems like she loves being first lady. She seems to be the hardest one to convince. She's in denial. He's in denial. And you know what they say, denial, it ain't just a river in Egypt. All right, I got more. Speaker Johnson today said he thought maybe it's time to invoke the 25th Amendment. More on that after we take a commercial break. 20 minutes now past the hour. USS has been in business now for more than 30 years. How about that? I mean, they've been around for a while. And they're the place you go if you got foundation problems. You've seen it. Bricks that are cracking, walls that are bowing, doors or windows that stick, drywall separating, stair-step cracks, and masonry mortar joints. They can come out and they can figure out what's going on with that. And then, if you got concrete that is sinking, a driveway, sidewalks, patio steps, sinking slabs of any kind, why don't you call the folks at USS? They got this polylift system. It's less expensive than replacing. Don't replace, raise it. That's what they say. And this is the time of year where you can get a lot of that stuff done. Listen, the work doesn't take that long. They could do it in a couple of hours. You can walk on it immediately, drive on it in 30 minutes. No unsightly patches or blemishes. And the moisture-resistant polyurethane they use to raise the concrete will never wash out over time. Listen, if you got any of these issues, the people you want to call. Really good people, lovely people, and they really know what they're doing. 615-488-7855. That's 615-488-7855. Learn more by going to their website, ussTN.com.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Matt Murphy for Members Nutrition. I want to tell you about the Members Nutrition difference, and I want to encourage you to go over to the Members Nutrition website. Number one, they believe at Members Nutrition that they can sell vitamins and supplements at a lower cost point, and they're doing it every single day at membersnutrition.com. Number two, they want to make these products right here in the United States of America, not from some overseas company, and they do that every single day. I encourage you to go to membersnutrition.com. You'll get 50% off your purchase price at checkout. You don't have to put in any codes. Just go to membersnutrition.com. Once again, membersnutrition.com.
Former President Trump back on the campaign circuit after taking a victory lap. Yeah, he's out there campaigning hard after last night's debate. We'll have some thoughts on that, and we'll have today's closing money news. That's all at 6:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It's 26 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. So many different little threads that we need to follow up on following that debate last night. Oh, my goodness. What a thing that was, huh? And again, a great night for Trump. We haven't really focused enough on that because we've been so focused on what are the Democrats up to? What are they going to do? And I think it's a fair question. But, you know, if there is another alternative here, and that would be the 25th Amendment. Speaker Johnson said today, the president's cabinet should consider removing President Biden through the 25th Amendment. Very bold thing for Mike Johnson to say. He said Friday members of the president's cabinet should consider using the 25th Amendment to remove him from office in light of his weak debate performance Thursday night. There's a lot of people asking about the 25th Amendment, invoking the 25th Amendment right now because this is an alarming situation, Johnson said. This according to thehill.com. Our adversaries see the weakness in this White House, as we all do. I take no pleasure in saying that. I think this is a very dangerous situation. I noticed last night Lindsey Graham was on, I think, with Hannity. I was watching some of the late night reaction, and he says, we can't have another debate like this. I don't want the world to see the cognitive state that our president is in. It does nothing but telegraph to the rest of the world that we have a shell of a man in the Oval Office. He's not really in charge. And I mean, clearly, it's scary when you think about that. I mean, we got problems around the world right now. We got the Russians, engaged in Ukraine. By the way, the other day, we were out there tracking Russian submarines just off the coast of Florida. What were they doing? At the same time, in the South China Sea, we got problems with the Chinese going after the Filipinos, their Philippine Navy, and giving them trouble they shouldn't have. They surrounded the island of Taiwan, and keep running those war games. One of these days, it's not going to be a war game; it's going to be a war. Many people have said, many bright people who look at the dangers in the world say, World War III starts in the South China Sea. Could be. And by the way, China and Russia, they're just chubby buddies now. I mean, they're going and they're meeting and they're having all kinds of conferences. We got Putin going to North Korea the other day to talk to Kim Jong-un. We got the Iranians now supporting all kinds of terrorist activity in the Middle East. Still a problem, and we may not be done yet if Hamas continues to act up. Or Hezbollah, the greater concern. So we got real problems, and what we are projecting on the world stage right now, believe me, our enemies on the world stage were watching what happened last night. They want to know what's going to happen with America. They want to know who's going to be the next president. They have an interest in this as well because, it has an impact on how they conduct themselves. And I thought that Lindsey Graham was right. We definitely don't want this to happen again. This was very concerning. I would ask cabinet members to search their hearts, said Johnson, mentioning reports that Democrats are panicking after Biden's debate performance. I would be panicking, too, if I were a Democrat today, and that was my nominee. I think they know they have a serious problem. And it's not just political. It's not just the Democrat Party. It's the entire country. We have a serious problem here because we have a president who, by all appearances, is not up to the task. And these are very dangerous times. This is a very serious moment in American history and needs to be regarded and handled as such. He's right. And we hope that they will do their duty, as we all seek to do our duty, to find out what's best for the American people. The 25th Amendment to the Constitution, which governs presidential succession, says the vice president and a majority of the cabinet may vote to declare a president unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office and give the vice president the duties of acting president. A dispute from the president about his capacity to perform the job would send the question to Congress, which would then decide to give the vice president the power of acting president by a 2/3 vote of both the House and Senate. Never before have the vice president and the cabinet declared a president incapable of serving in office. Chip Roy, early on Friday, said he would file a resolution asking Vice President Harris to convene the cabinet and declare Biden unable of carrying out the duties of his office. I don't think they're going to pay much attention to that, but that's something that's considered. 25th Amendment, man, is that where we are? How scary. 31 past the hour now.
Good evening and happy Friday. Yes, it is indeed 6:31. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We've got a mix of clouds and sun, but it's mostly sunny. We are now at 89 degrees on Music Row. That steamy weekend forecast and another traffic report are coming up in just a few minutes. Former President Trump held a post-debate rally today in Virginia, claiming victory over President Biden from last night's debate.
Former President Trump getting more mileage out of President Biden's widely criticized debate performance as he campaigns to win back Virginia next fall.
The question every voter should be asking themselves today is not whether Joe Biden can survive a 90-minute debate performance, but whether America can survive 4 more years of crooked Joe Biden in the White House.
Some Democrats suggesting Mr. Biden's Thursday performance was enough of a worry to find a replacement in the campaign.
That is Andy Field reporting for ABC News. Now let's go over to the money news, the closing news on the day from Chuck Severson.
From ABC News, Wall Street now. All 3 major indexes end the month having gained ground in June. For the day, the Dow lost 45 points, the S&P 500 down 22, and the Nasdaq index down 126. The technology-heavy Nasdaq had the biggest gains of the first half of this year because of the artificial intelligence craze. It added 18.5% in value. The broad S&P 500 added 14%. The Dow added just 3.6%. While the Dow had a pullback in the second quarter, the S&P and Nasdaq roared forward. A measure of prices that's closely tracked by the Federal Reserve suggests that inflation pressures in the U.S. economy are continuing to ease. Consumer prices were flat from April to May, the mildest such performance in more than 4 years. Measured from a year earlier, prices rose 2.6% last month, slightly less than in April. When you take out volatile food and energy costs, inflation barely registered any increase at all from April to May.
That is the latest news. Traffic and weather are next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Let me talk about the folks over at Grace Point Healthcare. And listen, this is the time of year where you need to start thinking about back to school and sports physicals. Grace Point provides complete physicals for kids of all ages. Scheduling an international vacation or maybe a church mission trip, Grace Point offers complete travel immunizations and is CDC certified for yellow fever and all other international immunization protocols. And because they will see you the same or the next day, you don't have to wait days or weeks to see a doctor. I mean, how good is that? I mean, honestly, have you ever tried to get a right now appointment sometimes with a doctor? It could take sometimes weeks. I've had doctors that tell me I'll see you in a month or more. Listen, that's the great thing about Grace Point Healthcare. Modern medicine at your convenience. It is affordable. It is comprehensive. It is convenient, delivered the old-fashioned way. They are located on Main Street in Main Street in Franklin, 615-599-6868. Again, that's 615-599-6868 to set up your appointment.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lock boxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
It is 39 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in the chair for a few more minutes before we hand things over to Mark Levin. He'll carry on through the evening. I just want to say once again, what a great time we had out at Hop Springs yesterday. I mean, by the time we got to the 6 o'clock hour, the place was a hopping. I mean, there were people in there. They were having a good time. Some people who came at 3 were, well into their second or third adult beverage, and we're having a good time. And by the way, just a lovely facility out there. Thank you so much. And thanks again to the Glock store for supporting us in that effort out there. And then, as we went all the way up till 8 o'clock last night, then we sat back and watched the debate. It was fascinating to watch the crowd react. I noticed, I heard Chris say today, that he really thought that it was interesting to watch it with a crowd and then go home and watch it again, Chris Hand. He watched it again at home. Said he was up till about 2 o'clock watching it and watching the debates and what people were saying. And I thought, well, that's interesting. It's a very different, sort of experience. And I think you pick up more sometimes watching it alone in a room, but it's so much fun to be like with people who see the world the way you were. They were hooting and hollering. It was like a sporting event. It really was. They were the crowd last night. Tremendously lovely crowd of people. And can I just say for a moment? I want to just divert. I said this yesterday. I'm going to say it again. Chris Hand's kids are just adorable. I mean to tell you that those 2 young sons of his, and he's got a daughter that's a little older, and I mean they walk right up to you. I want you to meet Mr. Wilson, and those little gentlemen stuck out their hand, looked you straight in the eye, and gripped your hand and said, "It's a pleasure to meet you, sir."
Wow.
I mean, I was like, wow.
I know adults that don't do that.
I know adults who don't know how to do that kind of stuff at all. I mean, confident, not cocky, confident, self-assured, and I mean, they knew exactly. They didn't have to be coached. They knew exactly what they should do in that circumstance. Well, I think it's something that we really need to teach kids, to shake hands and to look someone in the eye and to say, "It's a pleasure to meet you." And I just tell you, I was knocked out by his kids. His daughter is just adorable. And they were having a good time. They were out sort of on the lawn, kicking the soccer ball around, playing. They found other kids to play with, and a good crowd, a very good crowd. So again, thank you so much for supporting us. We've got the best audience of any radio station that I've ever heard of. I mean, we count on our people. They love this station, and we love you. We want you to know that. We really do. We do not take you for granted. We've talked an awful lot about the debate, and there are some other things that I want to sort of hit before we get out of here on this Friday night, because, we didn't pay much attention to them because we're so focused on this uber big story. I mean, it couldn't be a bigger story in politics than what we have just gone through. But I don't want to leave some things unsaid. And there was a couple of major decisions over the last couple of days from the high court. By the way, normally they're done by now. And normally they are finished by the end of June, and this would be today. But they've said that they're going to be in here Monday. There will be some decisions handed down. We still don't have the decision on presidential immunity, which is the one everybody's looking at. And the high court must really be struggling with it, or they're just trying to push it off until the very last moment. I think it would be interesting, quite frankly, if they released it, let's say, on the 3rd of July, and then went home, said, we're done. Normally, when you do something like that, you're trying to do something so it won't get a lot of attention, but I think it's going to get attention one way or the other. And it's an immunity thing, presidential immunity. Trump is asking for them to rule on it, and they took up the case. And there's so much pending on that. And I don't know. Is it going to come Monday? I don't know. Usually when they're the day before they're done, they'll say tomorrow will be our last day. They haven't said that yet. And we know they're going to release some, and they got some still to release on Monday, which is July 1st. So that'd give them the 2nd and the 3rd before we got to the 4th of July. And I think they want to be, for sure, they want to be done by the 4th of July. But they're going over, and that's very interesting. But this case is pretty big. Chevron doctrine overturned. Republicans and big business praise the Supreme Court decision. Republican lawmakers and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce praised the Supreme Court decision Friday, overturning the so-called Chevron doctrine, which for 4 decades led judges to defer to how federal agencies interpret a law when the language was not clear. This according to CNBC. It was a 6-3 decision by the High Court right along ideological lines. The Supreme Court undid a precedent that they had argued had unjustly strengthened the powers of unelected government officials. I love the way this is written. It's really very clear. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell said the Constitution vests Congress with the sole authority to make law. After 40 years of Chevron deference, the Supreme Court made it clear today that our system of government leaves no room for an unelected bureaucracy to co-opt this authority for itself. The days of federal agencies filling in the legislative blanks are rightly over. Chamber of Commerce CEO Susan Clark, in a statement, said, "Today's decision is an important course correction that will help create a more predictable and stable regulatory environment." Clark added that the High Court's prior Chevron rule allowed each presidential administration to advance their political agendas through flip-flopping regulations and not provide consistent rules of the road for businesses to navigate, plan, and invest in the future. So what happened with the Chevron deference, the Chevron doctrine? It had been in place for some 40 years. Basically, it was this. It said, if Congress passes a law and the agencies receive the law and they feel like there's some ambiguity or some lack of clarity in the law, then it is up to the regulatory agencies to decide how that law should be promulgated, how it should be handled, how it should be enforced through regulations, which aren't law but have the power of law. And if you come in and you challenge it and you say, well, we don't agree with that, the courts were left to say, well, the Chevron doctrine suggests that we should give great deference to the regulatory agencies. So, agencies like the EPA and the SEC and a whole list of other alphabet agencies could promulgate these regulations on business and other parts of our lives, and the judges largely couldn't do much about it. And the thing about it is that they're right. When you'd have a Democrat administration, they would come in and say, well, we know that the other administration interpreted this law this way. We look at it differently. We're going to interpret this way. And again, there wasn't much you could do about it. The Chevron doctrine was a horrible piece of legislation that gave strength to regulatory agencies and honestly took power away from Congress. I think McConnell's right. It's good to have that back in the hands of Congress. And if there's a question, take it to a judge. Let the judge decide what Congress intended. And if Congress doesn't like it, they can go in and change the law. That's the way it goes. So that's a big, big dog deal. Really big dog deal. Other rulings here, not unimportant. Supreme Court on Friday ruled in favor of a former police officer who's seeking to throw out an obstruction charge for joining a Capitol riot on January 6th. 6-3, again along ideological lines. A defendant, Joseph Fisher, who is among hundreds of January 6th defendants, including former President Donald Trump, who have been charged with obstructing an official proceeding over the effort to prevent Congress certification of President Joe Biden's election victory. The court concluded that the law enacted in 2002 that they used to come with this charge as part of the Sarbanes-Oxley Act after the Enron accounting scandal was only intended to apply in limited circumstances involving tampering with physical evidence. The court was sent back to the case was sent back to the lower courts for further proceedings. On whether the Justice Department could still prosecute Fisher under the new interpretation of the law, could come back to the High Court, but this could have a real impact on some of these cases. I think there's about 440 people who can be impacted by this, who've been charged in this way, and it does have an impact on some of the charges pending against Donald Trump. So that's also important today. Also today, the High Court ruled that homeless encampments, that cities can ban them. And this has to do with an Oregon case. They were finding people who were sleeping outside And basically, the lower court had ruled against the town, saying it was cruel and unusual punishment since it didn't have enough shelter beds to house the individuals. The high court's ruling essentially rejects arguments that banning homeless encampments went against the Constitution and sent it back to the lower court. This case is the most significant to come before the Supreme Court in decades on this issue. Comes at a time when there is a rising number of people in the U.S. without a permanent place to live. And I just must mention, because it happened yesterday, but we just didn't have time to get into it because of what was going on. The Supreme Court yesterday officially affirmed a lower court injunction that allows abortions and medical emergencies to continue in Idaho 1 day after inadvertently posting the opinion before scrubbing it. The case now goes back to a lower court for evaluation, but the decision by the high court ensures that the Idaho doctors can continue to perform emergency abortions for the time being, this according to the New York Post. 50 minutes now past the hour. Let me say a nice word about the good folks over at Restoration Wellness and Med Spa in Lebanon. They are the leaders of weight loss management in Wilson County. You know, summer is here. You want to look good in your bathing suit. You want to look good when you go on vacation or you go to the beach. I'm trying to look good because I got a 50th high school reunion. I don't want to go in there looking like a big old blob. I want to look svelte. So listen, I've been going at Restoration Wellness. 615-470-8124. Visit them at their website, Restoration Wellness Med Spa, to book a consultation today. I had a consultation, and now I am part of the more than 1,000 patients who have already seen life-changing results from the weight loss management program there. Weight loss can increase your energy levels, improve your quality of sleep, enhance your overall health. It is a customized treatment plan. They don't just take something off the shelf and apply it to everyone. They talk about your unique needs, your lifestyle, and your goals. So listen, whether your goal is to lose stubborn body fat or improve your overall health in other ways, Restoration has a solution for you. Learn about the newest technology in weight loss management and all the other things they can do for you by going to their website, restorationwellnessmedspa.com.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Matt Murphy for Members Nutrition. I want to tell you about the Members Nutrition difference, and I want to encourage you to go over to the Members Nutrition website. Number one, they believe at Members Nutrition that they can sell vitamins and supplements at a lower cost point, and they're doing it every single day at membersnutrition.com. Number two, they want to make these products right here in the United States of America, not from some overseas company, and they do that every single day. I encourage you to go to membersnutrition.com. You'll get 50% off your purchase price at checkout. You don't have to put in any codes. Just go to membersnutrition.com. Once again, membersnutrition.com.